I'm going to call tonight's meeting to order. Okay. Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Here.
Mayor Matsumoto Wright.
Here.
Councilmember Murray.
Present.
Councilmember Ryan.
Here.
Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Present.
Councilmember Sonmore.
Here.
Councilmember Woodard.
Accounted for.
That concludes roll call.
Thank you very much. So next is the public comment.
We have one person, Dale Jeremiah. You'll have 5 minutes at the podium.
Thank you, Mayor Matsumoto Wright, fellow council members. Hopefully you've all read the email I sent out Tuesday night, and there's 20-some reasons why we should build a pedestrian bridge at 228 between 50th and 53rd. But I want to talk about one specifically, and that's on page 73, goal EV3, promote distinctive regional identity. So I can't think of any other town in our area that is so fortunate to have a big ravine right smack dab in the middle of our city. So there is a golden opportunity to build a bridge of some distinction there. So when some people want to move a business here, move here, oh, you're the little town over the county line that has that beautiful bridge. And and also I wanted to point out that the corner of 53rd and 228th is in the town center. But the town center is not these 4 blocks, but it's taking up more than that. So in my previous suggestion is we need to add specific language on page 170. That's this page right here. After we say, develop an active transportation plan to guide and prioritize future non-motorized investments. Add specific language at the bottom of the email about specifically a bridge between 50th and 53rd at 228th. So all we're doing is we're saying, yeah, let's look at it. We're not going to spend a nickel, but at least we're going to plan for it. And then also on page 6.19 of the draft environmental impact statement, figure 6.6, that I didn't mention that in the email. That's what this looks like of the future or planned facilities. Future, we need to draw that line right there to include that. So, we can do this. It's just a matter of doing it. Now, I can give you 3 more examples that I discovered today of bridges. One is the Tukwila Urban Center Bridge. And Tukwila has a population of 21,000, similar to us. There's the Grand Avenue Park Bridge in Everett that goes over the railroad tracks, and there's also a sewer line that runs underneath it. So, and there is a sewer line that goes through 228th. At least there's a manhole down by Lion Creek. So, and there's also the University District Gateway Bridge in Spokane. And if you Google any one of these, it'll pull up a website called LMN Architects, and you can look at their projects. So when you slip this language in there with a nod and a wink to staff, and then vote for it on next Wednesday. Thank you very much.
No one else has signed up or registered to speak online.
All right,
And
thank you.
submitted written comments have been distributed to council members.
Okay. So next is the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. Just a couple of things to update you on this evening. First, last Saturday, the Foundation for the Edmond School District held their event at Lake Ballinger, their 5K event. There was about 600 attendees, so there was quite a few people that came out to enjoy the park. Great attendance at that event. 2 other items we have, as you know, we've been recruiting for the human resources manager and the communications and community engagement manager positions. We've selected finalists for those positions, and we'll be interviewing those finalists on Wednesday and Thursday of next week, so hope to have an announcement soon on that. And lastly, some maintenance that I think people ought to be aware of. going on. We are flushing the water lines in the Melody Hill area, so shouldn't see any disruption of service, but want to make sure we maintain the infrastructure that we have. We're doing the same for the sewer lines here in Town Center. Not flushing them, jetting them. So that's what I have updates for you this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions, comments? Councilmember Payne Donovan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Manager. I know we already talked about this once, but what can folks expect from flushing of water lines, et cetera? Do we expect any surprise surprises with when people turn on their taps over in that neck of the woods? Or
No, we don't expect anything like that. We want to make sure that the water is healthy and safe for everybody to drink, and make sure that we maintain the infrastructure that we have. This is really a routine maintenance operation, but you will see a lot of water flowing into the street that you might not otherwise see, and it's not unexpected. So just wanted to let everybody know about that.
All right, I don't see anyone else's hands going up. Thank you very much. So next is a presentation on the proposed 2025-2026 biennial budget by department heads. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. Real quickly, you have the memo that's attached to these presentations, and just gives you a background in the budget process. And the budget must be prepared and defined by RCW 34A-34, and it serves 5 purposes, and that's the legal document, the financial plan for the city. It's also a policy document that reflects your vision and goals. It's a management tool for us to make sure that we stay on track with what you expect to see. And it's a public information document, so we can make sure that we are transparent in how we are spending the public's money. So with that, the first presentation that we have this evening is for City Council, and pull that up here and share with you. Oops. That's not what I wanted to do. Here. And so there we go. This a little bit closer. So for the City Council's budget presentation this evening, I wanted to first give the organizational chart that shows Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and 5 council members representing the Mountlake Terrace community. And you can see there, I won't read from the screen, but obviously elected by the citizens of the community, and it sets your policies and your legislative agenda, and then you adopt goals for how we manage the city. You did that earlier this year with the adoption of your strategic plan over the next 5 years, and wanted to share some accomplishments. I just mentioned the strategic plan. All of you participate on regional committees and represent the community in other capacities other than acting as council members, and that you have active relationships with our local, state, and federal representatives. You recently, in addition, adopted the protocol manual, which changed a few operations, but also made it really clear about how this council functions and is transparent for our community members. The goals and the vision that the council adopted earlier this year gives us a path for making decisions on the staff level, and when we make those day-to-day decisions, to ensure that we are carrying out the council's vision and reaching the goals that you would like to see us reach in a timely and efficient manner. And the vision lays out what you would eventually like to see Mountlake Terrace be. A few other items. Salary commission, as you know, in 2019, the city adopted the salary commission model, and that salary commission adopted council salaries or stipends for the next 5 years. That ends at the end of this year, so we have formulated a salary commission and council appointed a salary commission earlier this year. Their next meeting is on October 21st, and we expect to have recommendations for what council compensation will be at that time that will then come to you. And then we also have a little bit of reorganization from how we were doing business before. So previously, legal costs, legislative support, and DEI commission were all spread across various departments. And we collated all that basically under the city manager's department where the work is done and managed. And then we made sure that the travel and training costs were updated so that council can stay involved in what's happening in our state. So you can see here by what we have the changes that are changed from the 23-24 budget, which we're operating under currently, to what we propose it to be for 25-26. And you can see that change in those increased costs, and that's reflective of the work that we've organized in this area. So we're moving it from one area to the city council because that's where, again, the work is being done. You can see those lines there. Happy to answer any questions about these. And finally, that's the end of the presentation for the city council section. And happy to answer any questions or go over anything else in more detail.
Anyone have any questions? Okay. I guess not.
Okay.
Thank you.
Share. So the next one we have. Okay. Next one is for the city manager's office. And this one shows the organizational chart again. All the functions that are performed by the city manager's office, including information technology, a proposed economic development manager. If you'll remember last week at the overall presentation, we are proposing one new position for an economic development manager to help implement the economic development strategic plan that council recently adopted. And below that, you'll see all the functions of the city and how those are separated out for leadership responsibility there on the chart. So purpose of our department is we have leadership and provides policy advice to our city council and directs the daily operations of city government, personnel functions, and for what we're all here tonight and for the next, I believe, 8 meetings after tonight to discuss the city's budget for 2025 and 26. And we make sure to support our city council for all your administrative needs. Had several accomplishments, including our partnership with the Mountlake Terrace Chamber of Commerce, and they are continuing to grow. We completed the economic development strategic plan, which I mentioned a few minutes ago, and we're testing new ways to market our city. That's one of the pictures there where we went to a award show or an awards event, and we were well represented there and made contacts with several opportunities that will provide us economic development, or that we hope will provide us with economic development. So under the council goal of responsible governance, we reorganized some of the staff functions in IT, engineering, parks, property management to better achieve the goals that the council has laid out. We did earlier this year adopt or complete the information technology strategic plan and are moving forward on some of those items. We are also in our city clerk's office making significant strides in digitizing all of our records, which is very important so we don't keep all of that paper here in the building. And we are on track to obligate all of our ARPA funds by the end of this year, which is a requirement through the federal act. We have been successful also in several different grant awards that bring opportunities and projects that will enhance, or will advance, rather, the vision of the City Council for our community. Informed and engaged community, we continue to modify our communications approach to find out what works best, and we're continuing to do that and will continue to do that. Never going to be perfect, but we will always strive for that. DEIC are serving as ambassadors, and they've done a great job representing our city. I'm thinking specifically of the light rail opening, where they staffed the city booth and did a wonderful job helping us introduce new people to the community. We've also got the strategic plan underway for the DEIC, and we're working on further external engagement. We have several goals, several stretch goals for 25 and 26. So we want to make sure that we create a branding and marketing strategy based on the economic development strategic plan that Council adopted recently, as well as the comprehensive plan that you'll consider tonight and in future meetings. And we want to continue our support for the Chamber of Commerce. They've been terrific partners to us, and we want to continue that partnership and move forward together with that group. For responsible governance, we want to make sure that staff is sufficiently trained. We were thinking a little bit earlier today about, there's various areas that we want to make sure that everybody has up-to-date training and utilizing the current best practices for our organization. One of those is safety and emergency safety as part of the community, or as part of the organization, and make sure that when there's an emergency, we can act quickly and efficiently to address the needs of our community. Want to make sure that we continue with the easy for me to say, digitizing the records to make sure that we hang on to those and know where to find them when public records requests are made. We want to update the safety plan, and we also want to ensure that our brand is cohesive so that all of our city documents and all of the materials that we share with the public and with others in the community reflect what our values are and what we are looking to achieve over the coming years. So you can see several other of those there. I won't speak to all of them. An informed and engaged community is incredibly important. We need to make sure that our community knows what's going on, or has the best opportunity to know what's going on and why is important. We also want to continue to support the DEIC's role as ambassadors in the community, as well as develop the City University or Mountlake Terrace 101 program that we've talked about in the past, and that's definitely something we want to get done next year. Personnel changes, there's not many, but the one I mentioned earlier, the Economic Development Manager position to implement the strategic plan, and we've changed the reporting for 2 administrative assistants to better serve the departments they work with, and that's for Public Works and Community and Economic Development. So changes we've had over the past 2 years, we had the salary adjustment, which Council considered late last year in 2023. We have embarked on the enhanced training program I mentioned a little bit earlier. Branding, I also mentioned earlier, and working on the long-range financial sustainability task force. So we'll be had those changes in 23 and 24, and we'll be implementing those in 25 and 26. So you can see here by line the changes across the functions in the city manager's office. That includes city clerk, city attorney, HR, economic development, and IT is not here. That's a little bit of a change from previous. We've changed the information technology function to I'm blanking here, internal service fund, sorry. So basically what that means is all departments use the IT function, so all departments will pay into the IT function for the services they use, whether that's software or licenses or those types of things. We think it's a more transparent way to show the costs of the IT function across the organization, and more reflective of what those departments cost in terms of IT services. Some departments cost more than others. So with that, I'm happy to go into more detail or answer any questions.
Do we have any questions, comments? Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead. Go ahead, Councilmember Sonmore.
Just want to pull it back up again. So the city council budget, where did it move to again?
The city council budget didn't move.
It didn't move. Okay, so then my question is, for the city manager budget in 2025, it's 623,000, and in 2026, it goes to 4,087. What is the reduction there?
That's a good question, and I will get the answer for you.
And then the city attorney, we expect no cost in salary increases for a city attorney for the next 2 years?
The next year, the reason why we have it that way is because we have the cost increased for next year, for 25, but we don't know what the cost will increase in 2026.
And
They adjust for inflation typically, but not always.
So one question I would have then, of course, the big issue is council doesn't like any surprises. And so I'm sure if there was some big surprises, and I'll ask every department too about that, we would be made aware of that. And then also there is a decrease in human services too by a little bit. And are they not printing something, or is the salary not going to be as much?
Oh, for the human resources function? Yeah, that's training. Those are training dollars. So we have several trainings set up for 2025 already. Things like anti-harassment and those types of trainings, so we can make sure we stay current on those. And we have different training programs for 2026.
And so is cost inflation built into all of our budget estimates?
Yes.
All of them, except for
city
the
attorney.
city attorney?
Right.
And economic development, is that the cost differentiate between the two? Is that training as well, the $30,000?
Yeah, so next year we have, based on the Economic Development Strategic Plan, we have a branding initiative that we want to build from the Economic Development Strategic Plan. That's not going to take place again in 2026. That's a well, not necessarily a one-time thing, but it's will happen next year.
And I'm not pointing her out, but for city clerk, is that the cost adjustment from the pay raise that we gave in November? Is that cost from 1 year to the next? Is that where that comes from?
There's a few other things that are a part of that too. One of them is the digitizing records project, because that's being run entirely through the city clerk's office.
I think she would have liked the whole budget, but
Right.
I wanted to double check. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mayor Pro Tem was next, and then we can go to you. You want him to go first? Okay, go ahead, Councilmember.
Thank you,
Biennial.
Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just appreciate, Jeff, the sort of like efficiency and sort of savings-focused efforts here, as well as, I think, trainings fits into that in my mind. As we're looking at proposals for the next 2 years, are there other, and perhaps this is a conversation for another time, I'm wondering, since we've been talking about digitizing records for a while now, are there other sort of wish list things that where we can achieve efficiencies, but take a bit of footwork in the meantime?
Yeah.
And so, if you've got a short answer, that's great, but I'd love to hear about things to make best use of your precious staff time,
Yeah.
and so on. So
No, I appreciate that. Short answer off the top of my head, the IT strategic plan that council reviewed earlier this year, there are a lot of costs involved in that, upfront costs. But I think over time, those investments will save us money, but it is upfront is difficult. And that plan was, had some very expensive components to it. So off the top of my head, I would say that. And that's actually another thing where you'll see each line, I should have mentioned this before, but you'll see each line go up a little bit more than you would expect because we changed IT to an internal service fund, which means each department is then paying into IT instead of just having their one line. But I can think a little bit more about that and share an answer with council.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, just following up on Councilmember Sonmore's question, also that kind of the number there for the city manager decreasing by $150,000.
Yep.
I'm assuming you're not taking a substantial pay cut that we weren't aware of. But and I noticed that on the city council, but obviously it was a smaller number where, and maybe it's just for the city council, I just assumed it was, maybe like a longer week or something that gets added in. Maybe it's a leap year or something. I don't know. But that obviously doesn't account for the city manager numbers. And so I was curious about that as well. But then also interested in the details on the economic development. So it's not obviously just entirely a salary. I'm assuming we also plan for, the strategy calls for marketing budget and things like that. So interested in additional details. And I just now, as you know, getting my hands on the full budget, so I'll have more questions and hopefully get some more answers in the budget here. But one of the things that I know in years past is there's always a professional services line in several different departments, and I'm interested in the numbers behind the professional services. What kind of, so there's one lump sum, but there's obviously a number of different contracts that we're paying through those different line items. So I'd just be interested in that down the line for all the different departments as we get there.
Okay. Yeah, I will absolutely share the numbers or the reasons for that with you and get you that information as soon as I can.
Councilmember Woodard?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to make sure I heard correctly, because I too am presuming that the green column is why we're here. You're going to be walking us through what the green column is. So I'm not disinterested in why I went from 10,000 to 329. But at the same time, you're going to walk us through that. And I presume the cheat sheet here for community engagement is that was the ARPA position that's cycling on to, so that's where that money's coming from. Okay, perfect. But again, we're walking through the green. Yep. Each department's going to do that, so this is just a 30,000, if not 50,000 foot view.
Yeah, and the economic development in particular, that is a huge jump, and that is the position that we are proposing for the manager. But also the branding and marketing strategies, and a few other features like that we want all in that economic development house, basically.
Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem Wall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And actually following up on that, so one of the things that we had funded previously, and as you called out, was the support of a chamber. Where is that in? Is that also in that economic development number, or is that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess just maybe some detail. Once we get the details on that,
yes.
I'll answer some more questions.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. There are no more questions.
Or
We're
not.
off.
Oh, sorry.
Set this up for finance. Is that it? No. That's community development. There we go. Welcome. There you go.
So next will be the Finance Department.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. I'm Sirka Salominen, and I'm your new finance director. I think I can still use that for a while. We have Caitlin Rinke, and she is our finance technician, and she's going to go over our budget.
Nobody showed me how to do that. Oh, we just pushed down. Okay, it's already up. All right, this is the organizational chart. It shows 9 employees in finance split between utility billing and financial services. And then the purpose of our department is day-to-day and long-range financial planning. Budget, which we are in the process of now, obviously. Usually begins in spring. Finance compiles all of their department information and forecasts to ensure compliance with state and federal regulations. Annual report is due to the auditors in May and the largest financial report that finance prepares. Purchasing, it's kind of self-explanatory. Accounts payable is all money out. In 2023, we paid over 12,000 invoices, 7,000 checks for over $30 million. Accounts receivable is loans, payments, and managing bonds. Payroll, we do twice a month, paying 246 employees, including council, every other week, or every other cycle. And paying all benefits and bills run through payroll. Debt management, loan payments and managing bonds. Capital asset tracking, we track and depreciate annually for the life of the assets. Investing in public funds, making specific and safe investments to earn interest. Utility billing, managing 6,000 accounts, setting up payment plans for large balances from COVID. Our accomplishments this year, or the last 2 years, we started a passport program, completed a successful 2021 audit with no findings, and continued progress on utility collections from COVID. Community engagement, we developed a welcome kit for new residents when a new utility account is open. Led a community engagement effort for 2024 on budgeting priorities. Provided communications this fall about engaging in the budget process, and went paperless with accounts payable and payroll. Our goals for 2026 are leading a long-range financial plan, track and report ARPA funding that's due by the end of this year, evaluate opportunities for efficiencies and cost reductions, evaluate technology and software to be more efficient and create better customer service experience, continue to provide transparency and engagement and opportunities related to the budget and utilities, and support the long-range financial sustainability task force. That's a mouthful. And finance is working with IT to try to upgrade our payroll system and some other recommendations from the IT strategic plan. And then
This is the most fun part for me. Finance does have pretty much the smallest budget out of all the departments, and it is mostly salaries and utility billing. And utility billing, I just want to mention, is really not a finance, it's a finance function, but it is paid for by the utilities, water, sewer, storm, because it's really a service that they provide. So I just want to mention that. Also, you see the reimbursements from utilities. Part of it is to pay for the utility billing, everything we do for utility billing, but also finance provides services to every single department. And so water, sewer, storm, they have to reimburse the finance department or the general fund for those services. So it ends up that our net expenditures are quite small compared to the other departments. You can go to the next slide. Lean and efficient, absolutely. And so this is a breakdown. As you can see, salaries, wages, benefits are the highest expense for the department. Supplies, we really don't have that many supplies, especially now that we've gone electronic on everything. We don't have to buy paper anymore, not as much. And then we have services and charges, and those are contract people that we hire to help out. It can be debt service, issuance cost, bank fees. There are all kinds of charges like that that go into that line. But again, the highest expenditure is definitely salaries. And again, the reimbursements from the utilities are shown. And this just shows the utility billing, what I just spoke about, where it really is a utilities, water, sewer, storm position, but it has a lot of finance in it. So it's in the finance department, but all of it is paid for by the water, sewer, storm funds. So there's a net zero on that one. And I think that's it. Any questions?
All right. Who had it up first? Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you both. Just a quick question, I guess, when we're talking about software as a service, so like our utility billing platform, is that under your budget? Is that under IT's budget? Where does that fall when we're looking at these?
So we have in Munis, which is our software, we use that for utility billing, but it is reimbursed. That's an overhead allocation, and it is reimbursed for part of it. It's, of course, we have different modules within Munis, but the utility portion is definitely reimbursed, part of that reimbursement from utilities.
So is that services and charges? Is that part of that bucket? I guess I'm trying to figure out where.
It's actually on the reimbursement part, reimbursement from utilities. And we would be paying, yes, absolutely. We pay services and charges. Part of it is our financial software goes into that.
Great,
You're right.
thank you.
Councilmember Salmore?
Well, welcome to Mountlake Terrace.
Thank you.
Happy to have you. My question is, under financial services, it goes up almost, just rounded up, $250,000, let's say, from 2004 to 2026. Why the increase?
Pardon? Yeah, we do have union contracts, so salaries go up every year.
So, and what union contracts is that?
The Teamsters?
And I think you said we settled that one? Or it's not settled yet? So I was thinking about the police, but I know we have the police report coming up. But-
Yeah, it's, contracts have been largely negotiated, but they're not settled. We still have to bring those to council for discussion and then approval.
But
But we
we're
do-
assuming that's the exact amount that,
Yeah, we do
That's
have
going
to, we do want to reflect that in the budget, so we're not changing at the last minute, making sure that we're showing what we think the true costs will be at the end.
and then my other question, how much are we paying in late charges? Do we have an estimate on how much we pay in late charges, bank late charges, other things? We've had that issue before.
Late charges? I'll have to get back to you on that. Hopefully, not much.
And any surprises that you think the council may need to know about in this area?
Not that I know of.
So mid-quarter next year, we're not going to see any big increases in this area.
I don't anticipate any.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Woodard first.
Thank you, Mayor. I thought you were about to move on. I didn't want to be like, oh, no. So just to humor me, I think I know this answer. Looking at 2023's actual, 766, that was, I'm presuming because we had to contract out quite a bit to keep afloat and ahead of things. Is that what happened there? Because we moved to the next year, and then looking at the proposed, we don't get anywhere near that number, nor was 2022 or 21 near that number. So just trying to figure out, remind me what happened that it jumped that high.
On which year? I'm sorry,
So I'm
on
looking-
23?
I'm looking at slide 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, so looking at actuals, 2023 actual 766, that top line under salary wages. Am I not reading that? 766?
I'm making the assumption that it is assistance, maybe?
Yeah, that's what I was asking, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I thought, it was when we had to do all those contracts, so that's why it looks
Yeah.
out of whack. Again, I was pretty sure that's what it was, but I suspect somebody's wondering, why was it so high? And we're acting like it's not a number. And so just want to make sure the residents paying attention, we are as well. But that was an anomaly, is a different way to say that for you Star Trek people.
Do you want to go? No? Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I had the same question as Councilmember Woodard on just be interesting to get some details behind the jumps. You know, as I get a chance to start looking into all of the numbers, I'd be curious as to, you know, why is 1 year substantially different? So just getting some more information on that would be helpful. But the other question I had was related to this. You mentioned supporting the sustainability task force. Is there a budget for that? And I'm assuming that's actually out of the city manager budget, probably.
Yeah, and that's one of the questions you asked during city manager's presentation was why 2025 was so much higher than 26. That's part of the reason why, is because the financial sustainability task force, if we have a consultant help us perform that work and kind of facilitate discussions among the group, that accounts for part of the discrepancy between those two, and that's in city manager's budget.
And so we'll get, when you provide the details behind that number, we'll get some answers on that as well then.
Yes.
How much that budget is going to be.
Yep.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Salmore?
Brian just had me thinking of another question that we normally always ask. Our expenditures look like they're quite high. We're buying off on like millions of dollars every month, like each expenditure is like $1 million. Is there a running total of what we've spent on expenditures and how it's changed from year to year?
Expenditures just in the finance department or overall?
No, overall, the ones that we sign off on.
Yeah, so for 2023, so we just have the actuals for 2023 because 2024 is not finished yet, but we did spend around $30 million for the whole city.
2023?
In 2023, yes.
Yeah. So is there any way you can compare that to like 5 years ago? Because we were used to seeing like 379, $500,000, and now it's over $1 million, and it's we're just not used to seeing it so high, and so that we were just kind of trying to understand the different areas it's going up. Because in past years, we've been extremely frugal with a lot of different things, and now I see us spending a lot more money.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering how that's going to affect our budget coming up, because in 2023, we were in the red really quickly, and since then, you know, we've gone up like $3 million in salaries. We still have to do police. We're just figured in Teamsters. I know it's over increase in time, and that's why I'm asking each department about surprises and understanding if everything's been built in, so we actually have a true picture, because we know we have to be presented a balanced budget. It's state law.
Right.
It's something that has to be done, but looking into the future and not banking on, you know, balancing the budget on ARPA funds or not balancing it on future projects that may be coming in. And so it's just having that clear view of what's going on, especially since we look at the expenditures all the time. It's just a little concerning. So that's what we wanted to look at.
And the way I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, city manager, but we are doing a lot more capital projects, and those always bring the budget up, so.
And we see, you know, anywhere from buying balloons to coffee to all sorts of stuff. So
Yeah.
you have to remember and Brian asked a few years ago to break it down a little bit better, so it's a little bit easier to read, but, you know, it's still just a big, huge increase from what we've seen
We'll
before.
do that.
Yeah, the proposed 2025-26 budget is actually 14% lower than the one council adopted for 23 and 24. So
Yeah, and that's what I have a big question about. There's quite a big different gap, and what we saw in 2023, it just raised some red flags with me, seeing that it was decrease so much when we know that we've done, was it almost $2 or $3 million in raises and salaries? And so that, then you see a gap here, and then we know some more salaries are coming. And I'm just using those because those are the ones on the top of my head that I know we're talking about. But there's all these other things. So how do we go down by that 14%?
Not doing as many capital projects?
But we're getting behind on capital projects, right? And I was looking at water, and some of our projects, I think in the next 5 or 6 years, it goes down to like $3 million in our budget. And we know we have tons of capital projects that we need to get done.
Well, we don't know because we haven't done the comprehensive plan, water and sewer comprehensive plans
Well,
yet.
but that's where we got in trouble last time, is we didn't, before you were here, we didn't, council needs to look at our water every 6 years, and we
Right.
feel the wrath right now of water. And in the past, we've had people bring in pipes for our sewers, and they've told us a lot of them are made out of cement, and eventually our whole cities, so we know that's all coming. And then we know with all the building going on, we know the infrastructure and our roads, and we talked about how all the roads need repair because of coming in and out, building light rail. So there's all these different things that are coming on board because our city's turning 70, right? And so we know there's going to be a lot of infrastructure projects that are needed. And so that's why I was kind of concerned about that 14% decrease over last year's budget, even though I'm buying off on expenditures are like $1 million every couple of weeks, and salary increases and increase to attorney costs. And so it's very concerning. And so that's why I'm asking a lot of questions.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, and one of the things, another thing that would have caused the budget to be higher and now lower is the ARPA funding. So capital projects, it would be part of it, but also the ARPA funding has provided additional millions of dollars that we no longer have. But one of the things I do appreciate that we're doing is my understanding, and I need to get into the details, but attorney's costs is a great example that we artificially budgeted that low, and then we'd see, it was very frustrating every couple of weeks seeing these overrun costs and overtime costs. I think we're also planning, honestly, in police budget, also not
No, it's going down.
keeping that artificially low and actually budgeting for what we really know the time spent rather than doing overtime costs. So I appreciate that again, that transparency. So while it adds to the budget, it's also more honest budgeting. But another thing that following up on another part of what Councilmember Sonborg's getting at, and I think I'd really like to get a little more information. We keep talking about the increased costs of government and how we're, everybody's feeling the pinch of inflation in every sector, everywhere, and part of it is the cost of our services as well, and the rates that we're paying others to provide services for us. So I would be interested in getting kind of an individual page, I guess, a one-pager of what those additional costs we're seeing that are cost drivers, things like insurance rates that we talk about, kind of an idea of what we're seeing in overall costs, additional costs for capital projects, for instance, the HVAC system and whatnot for the police. That was an additional, twice as much as we were planning. So just kind of getting an idea of that, and then the salaries, I think so that we know what the additional costs, remind us, I know we did that when we adopted it, but just a reminder of what those additional costs are running. So, but compiling, so rather than having, here we adopt something over here, and then we hear about something over there, let's get it into one page so we really have an understanding of what the true costs of government are and where we're seeing some of those increases.
Dan?
I think so, for now. Thank you.
Councilmember Sonmore?
I'm just following up with Councilman Wall. You brought up attorney costs, and those attorney costs came out about 6 to 8 months ago. We knew that they were going up, and some of the other cities have formed an alliance to kind of say, we don't want that. Has our city done that? Are we joining in with some other cities to go to Olympia and say that we are not, we don't
Oh,
believe
for
this is?
public defense? Yes. So AWC has led an effort. The problem, as I see it, is different organizations are pressing for different things. So like the Association of Counties, for instance, is not contesting the new maximum caseload standards. So they, from what I understand, are just planning to ask the legislature for additional resources to pay for it. Cities are taking a slightly different tack, and we're asking the Supreme Court to basically treat felony cases as they have proposed with the lower caseload limits. But for misdemeanor cases, which are those that arise out of cities, or those that, shouldn't say arise out of cities, but they, those are the ones that we prosecute, and we hold people in jail for, keep those at the current caseload standards or at a modified standard to reduce our costs. But the AWC and also every attorney I've spoken with said that this is likely to happen, and that we would be wise to increase our budget for public defense services so we don't get caught later where we have a problem.
And this is where I get mad, because as a citizen of City of Mountlake Terrace, you know, it's the few that we are increasing costs for with felonies and different things like that. So that's why I'm pushing back, because it's kind of like, you need to pay for this and you need to find the money from your citizens. And, and it's very frustrating to me, and I'm sure it is to the police, and I'm not doing anything against the police officers, but it's frustrating. Some of the rules that they had put in place in the years past are catching up with us now, and I think it's created more criminals, and so now we have to pay for some mistakes that we have done in the past, and so we're going to be paying a lot of money for that, and that's just my opinion, and it's just, I wish people wouldn't do bad things, you know, and keep our costs down, so that's why I'm asking about if we were joining, and we know that it will probably go through, but it's nice to join in with other cities to try and send a message, hey, stop, you know, or find a revenue stream to give us the money so our residents don't have to bear that burden.
Yeah, I mean, just one example, one night in jail costs us nearly $200 for each one. So, you know, yeah. So those are the kind of things that, you know,
And I'm not,
I wish people wouldn't do bad things either, because
and it's not that I'm saying that I'm not going to do anything bad, but one minute you can be the average citizen and the next minute you make that one mistake and you're in jail. You know, it's just, sometimes it's a fine line there, but it's still, it is frustrating, you know, just these costs. So Steve, you mentioned sometimes we have to ask those hard questions, and this is this one area that we have to kind of always push on, because the budget sometimes is a balancing act, and always one of the goals is not to lose employees and to kind of count your pennies, and the dollars will follow. We've heard that for years in our budget meetings, but it's to really safeguard our employees as well, because a few of us have been there when we've had to lay off employees, and it's horrible. And so that's why sometimes we nitpick about money, is because we do want to protect our employees and make sure that there aren't any layoffs and we're not spending where we shouldn't. And so sometimes we get a little bit, Brian and I get a little bit nitpicky on certain things, but it is not because we want to be mean to anybody or say we distrust people. We just know the consequences of having a bad budget, like we're reading about in Edmonds. So that's what we look at.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know we should get off the subject because we're on the finance department, but I can't help but to follow up on the costs of law enforcement and the legal system and how frustrating it is. And I'll be honest, and we aren't going to want to have this conversation, but because of those increasing costs and the rate that they're going up, we're going to have an honest conversation about which crimes we're going to prosecute. And I know that's scary, but that's how much it's costing us. And that's why I'm interested in getting those numbers, because I think we're going to see, you know, the costs of the criminal justice system is outrageous, and I mean, we need to have law and order, but we can't afford, you know, the huge increases we're going to see in public defense costs alone, let alone then, of course, you have the prosecuting costs. And I don't want to dwell on this now, I'm sorry, but that I mentioned it, but it is, as Laura points out, it is very frustrating and
Well, that's like-
difficult to see those numbers.
Our indigent costs, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think that this is an important conversation, and if, well, you know, sorry, finance gang, this isn't, you know, I think we're frustrated and, you know, delving deep into the budget to make sure we're, you know, we're balancing our books, you know, constitutional rights of those in our criminal legal system are sort of the bedrock of our Constitution and our system, and, you know, along with HVAC and salaries and everything else, I think it's a total balancing act. So we can, you know, look at this any number of ways, but I think city manager is probably calling it correct if you were to be betting on state Supreme Court decisions. But I think it is also our responsibility as community leaders to, you know, make these prioritizations, and you know, I'm sure public defenders aren't making out terribly well from those I know. So it's a rough balancing act, but I think we need to sort of look at the big picture societally. You know, costs are going up, and, you know, it's a tough road to hoe sometimes.
I like Councilmember Sarmer's comment. We just need to do better, be better.
Yeah, well, and I'm just saying that it can happen to anybody, right? I'm not saying that everybody's perfect and people make mistakes and stuff, but I don't want to have to decide what crimes we're going to charge and what we're not. But my issue is if we have a new finance director, and I'd like her to hear our conversations too about what we're talking about. But one of the reasons Brian and I are bringing this up is indigent cost. We had to look at those very closely, and we found out that we were kind of giving away some money, right? We had indigent people that could afford their tickets, but we were using our money. And so that's one of the things, like, why we dive into different things, because, you know, our police are like, you know, look, you know, and if they hadn't brought that up, we would have still been, you know, maybe not so strict on our budget and losing some money that people, when they did the crimes, could have paid for them. And instead, our citizens were paying for their crimes. So that's why we get into the tidbits of what we've seen over many years.
You'll be happy to know the police department presentation is coming up soon.
Yeah, that's right. I know. I see Pete, and he's like, moving along.
Got it out of our system.
Finance department got the earful.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you very much. So next is not the police department, but it's the Community and Economic Development Department.
My name is Matthew. Let me try on the mic. My name is Matthew Giss. I'm the building official for the city of Mountlake Terrace. And hold on, I'm not sharing yet. Let's try this one more time. There we go. All right, try this one more time. My name is Matthew Gissel. I am the building official for the city of Mountlake Terrace. Me and Christy worked on this. She wanted to be here, but she had a family emergency, so I will step in and do the best that I can to answer all of your amazing questions. All right, so this is our org chart. Ours is different than most departments, as almost every one of our employees touches every one of these buckets. So economic development bucket is exactly what you think it is. It's how we stimulate and strive to enhance the quality of life for residents for future generations. We do that by creating a long-term, long-range plan on how we're going to do that. Think of zoning, height restrictions, what are we going to do with our roads? Then that transfers over to the development services where we educate and help developers, homeowners, businesses come alongside with that long-range plan and come into our community to develop it in a way that you guys have seen the direction we want to go. Code compliance is not code enforcement. It was a verbiage that was put a long time ago, and we've kept it. Code compliance is actually all of your associate planners, your building inspectors, going through the development and making sure that they're meeting our code so that it's a safe and meets the design standards that we're looking for. A new arm that we'll be adding to this that I will show later is we did add actual code compliance to under CED, which is if they choose not to follow our codes, they go out and they're a self-sustaining part of CED. They go out and make sure that they make the necessary corrections to follow the code and the laws that we have put into place. Mission and responsibilities. The mission of CD department is to build community by striving to enhance the quality of life for residents for future generations by implementing the goals, policy, and long-range visions set by City Council. Promote the value of code compliance to the betterment of Mountlake Terrace as a place to live and to do business. Provide a superior and personalized customer service. Long-range planning allows the opportunity to build community by identifying and preserving the desirable characteristics of the city and foster economic development by placemaking, infrastructure, and land use regulations supporting small businesses and aligning with partners to achieve shared goals. Some of our accomplishments. We achieved temporary certificate of occupancy for the opening of Sound Transit Light Rail Station to the public, which many of you attended. So they are fully operational at this point. We assisted in the completion of the economic strategic plan. We updated our permitting software, allowing an increased number of applications while maintaining and reducing review timelines. That is still a work in progress, but our new software is also open so that anyone in the city of Mountlake Terrace can look and see if their neighbor has a permit, how many permits are in Mountlake Terrace, or is there a current code case for something that they may see that bothers them. So we also prepared Vision 2044 comprehensive plan with an emphasis on updating land use designation and the implementation of state legislation. For the responsible governance and to ensure desired level of service, we created policy and procedures for CED for the integration of code compliance. So there's actually a policy and procedure manual that helps them guide so they know which cases to enforce on first and which one has the highest priority. This creates equity in our community and is guided by City Council and your goals moving forward. We also updated the policy and procedures to coincide with our new permitting software. So that way, again, we process in the order that we receive them. The squeaky wheel does not get the grease in Mountlake Terrace. We serve everyone the same, no matter who you are, where you come from. We try to get the first in, first out. We have evaluated time spent on permits and proposed and adopted and reduced from one of the first time fees where applicable. So we actually were able to utilize data to see how much time it took us to process permits, and where we were able to, we reduced the cost of those permits or eliminate them all the way together like we did with fence permits. We created created processes and procedures for business license application review. So to try and expedite the process, we now just brought in business licenses altogether, so that way we can review them more quickly and get them out, so that way people can open their businesses in Mountlake Terrace and start creating revenue. Revitalizing the residential rental inspection program. We did that utilizing flyers and mailers to actually go out to a lot of our rental houses, working with finance on utility billing. So if utilities come in and they have a different owner than who's paying the utilities, that lets us know that someone else is residing there. And we want to make sure that that house is as safe as possible as per our code. We go out and make sure that it's inspected and they meet all the life safety criteria. In an effort to reduce timelines for public records requests, our paper files are being digitized. CED is one of the first ones to adopt adjusting our file structure and our software, and have been working diligently to scan all of our paper files and put them into those digital files to make it easier to find them when public records come in. An inform and engage community. We prepared a public participation plan for the comprehensive plan and review process. We updated permit portals to allow public access for review, development permits, and code cases. We provided documents in multiple languages to reach underrepresented members of the community. We provided multiple points of engagement at the city events and other locations in the community. And we engaged the public using increased digital outreach, so if you couldn't make it to the event, you could still attend digitally. Environmental sustainability and resilience. Implementation of development review software, Track It. Basically, we're 100% paperless. We're fully digital. If someone does not have the means or the methods to don't have email per se, we still do accept paper, and we will allow them to call in inspections if they need to. But for the most part, 99.9% are fully digital at this point with no paper. We prepared an environmental impact statement to assess environmental impacts for the comprehensive plan and development regulations. We engage code compliance for critical areas to make sure that those sensitive areas aren't being compromised or adjusted. And we adopted the 2021 Washington State Energy Code, which might be one of the reasons why our HVAC systems cost so much. Sorry about that, but they will be safer and last longer, and the running cost for it will be less. So, how long will it take? Council goals: growing a vibrant community. Department objectives we have for the 2025-2026 cycle is allow for diverse housing. Move that. Allow for diverse housing options to ensure community members can live and work in the city. Support businesses and organizations by removing obstacles to their success. Create relationships and connections between businesses. Responsible governance to ensure desired level of service. One of our objectives is to increase partnerships to leverage city resources, embrace opportunities to collaborate and improve the city more holistically, maintain public health and safety through police, fire, and emergency preparedness services, and inform and engage community. Proactively engage the community in an infrastructure improvement and other plans to accommodate growth. Ensure the new planning and design projects are resourced well enough to have strong communication and community engagement plans and consultants. Environmental and sustainability and resilience. Plan for climate and environmental protections while incorporating community health and environmental justice. Personnel changes. We had 2 co-compliance positions moved from the police department to CED. That would be one of the cases there that you can see. Reclassified a permit specialist position to a lead permit specialist position to better strategically make quick adjustments to the front desk to better serve our community and our citizens. Cost of living and performance increases just increase the total cost of our total employees. So when you look at salary and wages, as you can, it's going to go up a lot because of those salary increases, which will help us retain the amazing employees that we do have, and then reduce our having to retrain new employees coming in. So that's the biggest change for that. And like I said, our CED kind of has employees in each one of these buckets. So where most employees just in their time card have one, many of our employees are touching several of these buckets in a weekly basis. So development services, that would be our permit specialists, our plans examiners, our associate planners. Same thing, budget went up. For salary and benefits, supplies went down because we're now digital. So you can see from 2024 to 2025, don't need all those papers and pens as much anymore. And most of the other ones maintain the same. Long-range planning, same thing with salaries. The biggest thing that you'll see changed is the service and charges, as we are bringing in outside consultants to help with our long-range planning. Economic development, same thing. We were up in 2023, came down in 2024, and we actually took a good time looking at our budget, removed what we could to try and make us do a lot with a little as our goal in CED. So for the most part, most of our numbers are pretty much the same with gradual increases. Discussion and questions.
Are there any questions? Councilmember Sonmore.
Can you tell me more about the, and you explained the one cost I had an issue with, but the under accomplishment with the rental, we had a big presentation on that years ago with our rental, and we were supposed to be provided how many rental inspections we did a year, and we weren't doing it. And so now I'm hearing you are doing that rental inspection, because on Facebook, and I don't know the person, but they rented an Airbnb, so, and then other people chimed in about how horrible some of our rentals are in our city. And I'm sure that's with a lot of cities too, but I'm wondering if you're seeing those, and if we could be provided how many rentals are actually being inspected, and what we're finding in those, because we've had some very, very bad situations of rentals in our city before.
Yeah, so that was one of the motivations for revitalizing the program. We also had staffing, which we just didn't have the capacity to take on the thousands of rentals that we have in Mountlake Terrace. So with our current staffing and adjustments that we have made, we have had created capacity to be able to re-implement that. And what started out as I said, reaching out and reminding people that they needed a rental business license. And along with that rental business license, they had to have an inspection of compliance. So that has just been re-engaged. So what I would like to do is wait until the end of the year, and then I can give you updated numbers, because just in the last few months is when we started engaging our rentals and sending out notifications that they need to do that. So they have been coming in, but it will take time to get those numbers up. So.
State how much money that is bringing in as well?
Yes, when the whole idea is my long-term goal is to have it be a self-sustaining part of Mountlake Terrace, and if we could create a position that's strictly for that, then that's what we would like to do. But we have to demonstrate first that it's cost-effective to do that, because they're annual. So once we kind of get the data, then we'll be able to bring you a proposal of the revenue that it brings in and the cost for running the program.
And just to follow up, just because we had that bad situation a long time ago, I know we talked about our social worker, and they placed 33 people in housing, which I was really surprised that there was that many extra housing units to place people in, and maybe it was different things that I don't know about. But when we find something that's really bad, we had a family living in just horror, and do we have any thing that we can offer to them?
So we do work with South County Fire that has direct connections for housing and things of that nature. We've great partnerships with school districts, principals and others, where they've literally reached out to us and taken pictures, and we have worked with code compliance to issue a stop work order on the residence, notifying the owner of the house or the apartment complex. And when that happens, we usually get a pretty quick response and a resolution on it, so.
Councilmember Woodard?
I'll keep mine short. I just want to say welcome back. It's great to have you back in the space.
Thank you.
Great work that you've done. That said, kind of a random one, maybe in the midst of this is going to sound like a joke, but I'm not joking at all. Have we seen an uptick in chickens?
And chickens. I will have to ask Laura if she's seen an uptick in chickens. So we have gotten a drastic uptick in the amount of code compliance cases. This budget overview is like the 10,000 view. So once we get more into the weeds, well, I'll be more than happy to give you the numbers of total code cases, and I'll make sure she strategically checks for how many of those involve chickens.
That was a big issue a couple years ago.
Yeah. Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't think it was an issue. People were very excited about the opportunity, and they came and talked to us about it, and now they have that opportunity. No, I'd be curious as well, and welcome back. It's very nice to see you. I know we already talked about this a little bit in the previous presentation, but I think just understanding where there's some variables that are harder for us to understand just in looking at it. I think so on page 13, for instance, like the benefits from 2024 benefits are just under 300,000, and they fall supposedly next year to 150-ish, which, given what we know about benefits costs, would surprise me if we were seeing a significant decrease in benefits cost. I would love to understand how that's going to happen if it is, but that would just be another one that I would appreciate adding to the list of things looking to understand a little bit better.
Yeah, and once we get into the more specific details, what we did find when we were looking at our overall budget versus previous years is there will be budget line items that'll be less than the previous years because we were double counting.
Okay.
So the way that our software worked is it took Excel took numbers from another sheet and transferred it over, and then our salaries, because it's in those 4 buckets, we also have other cost codes that we use for plan review to make sure that the fees for plan review are paying for plan review. So had a plan review fee line item that was having a total, but then we also had a long range planning one that had a total. So we were double counting those. So these numbers should be more holistic once we get into the details, and I'm more than happy to go over that with you all.
Love it. Love cleaner data, and love it in particular when it makes the budget work better.
This is what I love. Data dictates decisions. So I'm going to give you all the data that you need.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anyone else? I probably know Mayor Pro Tem has something.
But I'll be patient.
I don't see any other hands going up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The numbers and getting transferred, which reminded me of a question I should have asked Finance or City Manager budget. It was that artificial intelligence that created the but which sorry to backtrack, and I'll come back to CED. But are we, speaking of artificial intelligence, since I brought it up, how are we incorporating that and utilizing that in and is there do we have a line item to budget for that yet, for identifying cost efficiencies within the cost of government, and B, identifying, we're all overworked, right? But a lot of our jobs, a lot of pieces of our jobs are repetitive, and things that AI has the potential of being able to help. I'm not replacing jobs, be very clear. I'm replacing tasks, and interested in identifying, some of those tasks like copying and pasting in the right area. So is there a line item for that? And how are we addressing artificial intelligence, utilizing artificial intelligence?
So that's a great question. So that's one of the main reasons why you transferred over to new permitting software. So the wonderful thing is CED gets to work with almost every single department. So finance, police department, fire department, engineering, building and planning. And so what we were finding is we were spending a lot of money in data transfer. A permit specialist would take something in, they would type it into here, then they'd have to go type it into move it over to the next one. And so what we did with our new software is a lot of that is now automated. So where they used to have to do a intake appointment, send your information in, they would have to transfer that sheet into the software. Now someone can fully submit their plans digitally from their home. That automatically puts in who the reviewers are. Those reviewers automatically get updated when they need to do the review. Once all the reviews are done, it automatically tells the project manager, which is new that we created to help streamline the process, tells the project manager what their next part to do with that process. So with the number one thing pretty much going through the city of Mountlake Terrace is permits for thousands of permits a year. That is going to exponentially decrease the amount of time that we're wasting on data transfer. And that is part of the integration of that artificial intelligence, as well as our inspectors utilizing tablets in the field. So they're not doing data transfer either, where they used to print out their inspection list, go out there, take all their notes, come back in, and then spend the rest of half their day putting all their notes in the computer. They can do it all live, pushing a button, speaking into the tablet. It'll dictate that, put that in the notes, and then that also helps our citizens and applicants, because the minute they leave, they know exactly what their corrections need to be. So in the other areas.
Yeah, more broadly.
And thank you. I mean, that's a great example.
Yeah.
But
More broadly in the IT line, there's not something specifically named AI, but there are some project ideas that I have to utilize some of the professional services money that you talked about earlier. And as other cities are using this, Kirkland has implemented a system where AI will answer citizens' questions, basic questions. They have a policy already for that. For that particular use case, I would rather not be on the bleeding edge.
right, yeah, I was going to say Xfinity, I hate that.
Yeah, right. So those types of things, but I also want to be able to jump on opportunities immediately when they become apparent that it'll work for all of us.
Yeah, no, thank you. So I would be interested in again, some line items on some of that, because I do think there is huge opportunity, maybe not immediately, or some areas immediately, and others maybe longer term, but I think that, again, identifying, and particularly, I guess I come back to finance, because I think there's finance maybe can help us take the lead on some of that, and identifying cost efficiencies and effectiveness, and being able to utilize in a lot of data processing and things like that, that maybe we can help reduce some of the costs of government while we're seeing increases everywhere else. Okay, so thank you. Getting back to, so CED, one is, again, the services and charges, are interested in getting some of those broken out. And one of the areas that we see a lot of fluctuation, I'm sure a lot of it has to do with consultants for the comprehensive plan, and then we're going to need consultants for updating the development regulations that necessary to implement the comprehensive plan that we're adopting this year, right? So I'm interested in getting some numbers on how much are we spending on some of those, but also how much are we getting in grants, receiving in grants to be able to help pay for those services would be really helpful. And then can you help on the economic development position, help us understand the difference between this position versus the manager versus the chamber versus another thing that I'm guessing is, so there's a role for processing permits, business permits, right, which was probably under CED, but then there's the paying the taxes that we're paying, that businesses are paying, which would be finance, right? So help break down all those different moving pieces for us.
Yeah, so a couple things there. The Economic Development Manager is specifically to implement the Economic Development Strategic Plan, work on the branding initiative, make contacts with people interested in investing in our community, and basically act as a concierge through the process. Economic development in the CED context is going to be things like Matthew mentioned earlier, streamlining the permitting process, making sure we can hit our timelines, so that we can provide certainty on when people will be able to get their permits issued and ready to go. As far as how that interfaces with the Chamber of Commerce, there are, one big way is that I see the Chamber of Commerce, and I've had discussions with the Chamber about this. I see the Chamber of Commerce as expansion and retention of existing businesses and making sure that they have a conduit to the city to make sure that we understand what their needs are and we can meet those needs. But also taking these new developments and the spaces that are going to be created by these new developments and helping find people that are interested in starting a business and helping them locate here in Mountlake Terrace. So I see all of these parts working together and in concert, each with separate roles, but all working toward the same goal.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, to end on the positive note, so currently we're, look, just want to bring you some news. So currently in process, already being permitted and plan reviewed, we have 864 apartment units being reviewed with 10,800 square feet of commercial space. We've got 77 new single-family residents, that's including townhomes, that are either being reviewed or currently being built. And with our new permitting software, we had 294 permit applications, which from its adoption in September 28th, which puts us at about 1,800 permit applications for the year to date. So, that's all I got.
Did I hear
you.
wrong? It was 2,000 townhomes? Did I hear that wrong?
No, 77 new single-family residents, including townhomes.
Oh, okay, including 77.
There's around almost 2,000 permit applications for this year. So that's all applications,
Okay.
plumbing, electrical.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. So while we're getting the police are next. Do we have Joan's videos?
Can you fit in that? Can you fit in that, or do you want this chair?
I'm in here.
You're in?
These are
You
just
can't
state
get,
ones.
you can't get out, yeah.
I have little houses here.
Yep.
Yeah, little houses. Yeah. Well, how about? I think we're still on. Next time I'll get a whole bunch, give them away to your kids. Probably should.
Good evening.
We can probably start. Do we have to wait?
Yeah, we could wait.
Right. I think we can take a break after the police are done, if that's okay.
Are we going to go a lot later after that?
We have got the comp plan.
Oh, goodness, okay. We'll take a break
Right.
after you guys.
All right, I'll go ahead and start then. Let's see here. Okay. So this is an organizational chart for the municipal court. On top is municipal court and jail services. Below that is the hearing examiner and violations bureau, court services, jail, and jail alternatives. So our mission is to equitably provide these services while maintaining the integrity and fairness of the judicial system. Accomplishments, council goal would be a responsible governance to ensure a desired level of service. Our accomplishments, we negotiated service contracts for the public defense and prosecuting attorneys. We processed 250 to 300 civil violations through the Violations Bureau. We screened and approved indigent defense applications, worked with outreach program to provide jail alternatives, held hearings for civil violations along with providing hearings by mail, and we continue to pursue DUI restitution costs. Goals for 2025-2026, council goal, growing a vibrant community. Our department objective, we worked with prosecutors to appropriately adjudicate violations to ensure public safety. Council goal, another council goal is responsible governance to ensure desired level of service. Our department objective for that would be citizen contacts are handled professionally and equitably, work with jail staff to provide medical and mental health services, and maintain fair and professional process for arrest and adjudication. Continued goals for 2025-2026, council goal, an informed and engaged community. Our department objective for that would be offer community resources to individuals with needs. And another council goal, environmental sustainability and resiliency. Our department objective is to work towards paperless goals for managing records and provide alternatives to in-person hearings. Other changes from 2023-2024, we reassigned animal control to the police services specialist, and we added body-worn camera video as evidence in court. Changes for 2025-2026, fees for both defense and prosecution continue to increase in large percentages. Legislation may further restrict the number of public defender cases, which would require hiring additional staffing to accommodate caseloads, like was discussed earlier. Legislative changes for drug possession and vehicle pursuits have resulted in additional arrests and bookings, and jail costs continue to increase annually. So this is a snapshot of the municipal court budget, which would include salaries and wages, benefits, supplies, services, and charges. And this is a breakdown of services and charges to include the hearing examiner and violations bureau, South District Court, attorney services, and jail and home monitoring services. Just answer any questions if we can.
Well, do we have any questions before we get the Mayor Pro Tem here? Okay, Councilmember Summer.
Sorry, I was opening a couple things at I think it's page 14. It would be going off what Aaron was talking about before. 2024 benefits were 30,000 and they're dropping down to 11. Line 2.
Right.
It's that one right there.
Yeah.
Salaries decreased, and that brings benefits down?
Rule of thumb is usually benefits are a third of what the salary is.
You never hear about salary decreasing. What happened with the salary?
It's not an individual, it's an allocation from different departments. So it's not an individual employee, it's how we allocate the costs across different functions.
This is a separate presentation for police. This is just the municipal court stuff. Yeah. All right, we'll go to the police one.
Are you done, Laura? Okay. Councilmember Woodard and then Roy Payne Donovan.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. And again, I know green is what we'll get into, but just for some foreshadowing, holy, I'm looking at jail and home monitoring services, $200,000 in 2022, $500,000 by 2026. And just so.
Jail costs have increased exponentially. I might add that home monitoring is not a program we currently have within the police department. We do contract with some home monitoring services through the Snow County Jail, and in the future, perhaps the Linwood Jail when they open. But yes, you're correct, the jail costs are going up and up and up.
Wow. Anyone else before we go to the Mayor Pro Tem? I don't see any hands, so you're up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Where is this embedded social worker? Is that in the police budget versus the municipal, I assume, right? And I'm curious, and talk about foreshadowing, one of the things I know that we're very interested in, and it's too preliminary to know, but I guess kind of working regionally to address the criminal justice system and the costs, and but also the related issues, I guess. You know, a lot of it is mental health and substance abuse and housing. And there's, as we know, there's taxes being collected at the county level for these services. Yet, do we have any idea how that's helping our residents in Mountlake Terrace, and how can we work together as South County region to make sure that we're serving our residents with those services better?
Two things. As far as the embedded social worker and those issues surrounding that part of the equation, we currently are part of the Scout program of the county. We're, as usual, we're getting a very good deal. That's going to go up, but we have a social worker that's embedded. We have her a couple days a week. You'll see a picture of her later to deal with those issues. And the second part of your question, the funds that are not trickling down from county, it's funny you should mention that. That's on the agenda for the next Snohomish County Chiefs and Sheriffs meeting in the 24th, and we'll be discussing that. I think we're all aware that that money just doesn't seem to be trickling down as we would like it to be. And we're gonna have an answer for you about what the future holds for that.
Very good, thank you. I think that is a really critical issue that we as a body and as a region working together with not only our chiefs, but you know the social worker and Verdant and you know all the other different service providers, and ensuring that you know millions and millions of dollars. That's another question I have that would be interesting to know is how much are they collecting for those sales taxes from Mountlake Terrace, and then obviously the follow-up question to our county council members would be how much of those dollars are being returned back to their districts and in our case our city. So looking forward to having a further conversation about that. Thank you.
As am I, and hopefully I'll have some answers for you next time we talk.
Good luck, because we haven't gotten any out of the county yet.
Okay, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I have with me both commanders sitting next to me, Commander Mike Haynes, and sitting next to him, operating the computer, Commander Scott King. We'll start out our presentation with an organizational chart. We've gone over this before, but just to make things clear how we do things. Our organizational chart, obviously, I'm the chief of police, and direct beneath that, working directly for me as a management analyst, Joey Worthen. Joey takes care of our accreditation, does a lot of our budget work. She's an exceptional talent when it comes to managing numbers, and I rely on her quite a bit. The command division commander is Commander King. He supervises the investigations division, the detective sergeant, the 3 detectives and the 1 detective that's assigned to the violent offender task force. We've talked about that before. That sergeant supervises the domestic violence coordinator and the property room technician. In addition, we have a special services sergeant. Special services sergeant really is a project-driven position, and he or she supervises the records division and the police services specialist and animal control. The operations commander, Commander Haynes, sitting next to me, supervises 4 sergeants that each assigned 4 officers in their command. They work patrol. 2 squads work day shift, 2 squads work night shift. That encompasses 28 commissioned members of the department. Again, before you are our mission statement, and the picture indicate it's 3/4 of one of the night shifts, newly promoted Sergeant Eugene Shen and William Wingard and Luther Russell. Coincidentally, those 2 officers went to the academy together, and they had the luck of being assigned to the same shift, so they've been together for almost 2 years now. Next slide. In terms of accomplishments, we tie those to council goals. This first one is tied to responsible government to ensure desired level of service goal. Some of our accomplishments in this regard, we've added body-worn cameras for all patrol officers. I spoke to you at length about this several times last year. We've utilized the bike patrol at city events. We've expanded the drone program, which we seem to talk about every time before you. We're very proud of that program. We've retrofitted the patrol cars for less lethal control devices with changing legislation. That's cop speak, but those are actually alternatives to the use of deadly force. They're de-escalation tools that are very useful in avoiding the use of deadly force when we possibly can. Meeting all state retaining mandates within required time. We met those timelines and exceeded them in most cases. Scenario-based range drill for realistic responses to crisis situations. And just yesterday, we started precision immobilization techniques training for patrol since the changes in the pursuit legislation. That's something we're beginning to train at a bit more intensively than we may have in the past couple of years. Another accomplishment, this one tied to an informed and engaged community. We've spoken at some length about the embedded social worker program that embraces and expands our community outreach concept. We've achieved state accreditation. Almost 20 years now we've been accredited. And we've achieved professional certification at every level for supervisors and management. Some of the pictures you'll see there, if you go back to that slide real briefly. Some of the pictures you see there is the honor guard in the top left, an example of outreach for homeless folks. Danielle Sing, our domestic violence coordinator. Commander King receiving the accreditation award at WASPIC. That is our social worker with the red shirt and the vest on. And then you see a picture of me under the sign, the welcoming sign with William Page and another member of our DEIC commission that's hanging in our lobby. You'll see one in the City Hall lobby too. That's in about, I think, 17 or 18 different languages. On to Commander Haynes.
Goals for 25 and 26. Our primary mission is to provide a safe community by serving in a manner consistent with council goals. These goals include growing a vibrant community by providing a high quality, full-service police department. This is accomplished by education enforcement in combination with making community outreach an ongoing priority. Providing responsible governance to ensure the desired level of service. We endeavor to ensure all our interactions with the community are professional. We will continue to create opportunities for the community to engage with us. We will identify and implement programs intended to heighten our effectiveness. We will remain an accredited agency and carry on with consistent internal reviews to ensure effective use of resources. The police department will contribute to an informed and engaged community by providing several readily available avenues for our community members to ask us questions, continue to ensure that we are transparent and responsive to these inquiries, continue with timely responses to public records requests, and hosting ongoing community meetings such as cops and clergy. In regards to environmental sustainability and resiliency, we will focus on replacing vehicles at the end of their lifespan with hybrid or EV options. and continue to move towards a paperless department, beginning with records management. Other changes from 2023 and 24, staffing adjustments made during the last 2 years include consolidating 2 cadet positions into 1 full-time police support specialist and animal control officer, assigning body-worn camera redaction responsibilities to the property room technician, filling the vacant 4th detective position, and working our way back to near full staffing for patrol. I'll turn it over to Commander King.
So this is a snapshot of the entire police budget. It reflects inflation, projected wage increases, left 1, command services, operations, and SWAT. And this is a breakdown of command services to include salaries, wages, and benefits, supplies, and services. And this is a breakdown of operations and SWAT to include salaries, wages, benefits, supplies, and services. Any questions?
Any questions? Councilmember Salmore?
I was going to pull it up real fast, but our budget online, it looks like you're going down to 34 officers. You're losing a couple for next year. I was trying to find it real fast. It looks like a surprise, so maybe it's not, but I'll find it later. But I just wanted to know if there was a decrease in officers.
There are currently 28 commissioned officers. I think those 2 positions you see losing are the code enforcement officers that came over here. We are not losing any police department positions, any police officers positions in this budget.
Are we fully staffed?
Pardon me?
Are we fully staffed? Minus
We
1.
have 1 new officer in field training. He is almost ready to complete that, and I made a conditional offer to a young man from Seattle Police Department that wants to come up to work up here last week, and he's in the middle of his background. If both of those fellows are successful, we will be fully staffed at present.
Yeah. Okay, anyone else? All right. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. Similar question to my previous question around benefits and benefit cost decreases. So I think we see a similar decrease on page 11, where budget this year is 657,000, proposed for next year is 550. So just, I think, trying to understand where those decreases are coming from and whether those are accurately reflecting the costs.
What page is it?
Page 11 is a more significant one, but there's also a decrease on page 12 as well.
What line item are you speaking to, the benefits?
The benefits cost, yeah. So the 24 budget is 657 and the proposed budget is 550 next year.
Yeah, we'll make sure we get those answers for you.
Perfect, thank you.
Councilmember Woodard?
Thank you, Mayor. This isn't a budget question, the process we're in right now. This is more of a, maybe next time you report to us, are we in 4th quarter now? One, I appreciate the bicycles being shown. That's been on my mind. In the way that we frame this to more effectively respond to incidents, I do believe that to be true, but I'd be curious to see how we can document that. I'm hoping that to be true right now is a better way to say that, so I like seeing it written. But at the same time, we made some pretty significant investments. I like seeing the body cameras and the bikes, and we're doing that during a time where folks expect us to divest from you all, and we are not doing that. And I appreciate that. But I'd also like us to show and look at look how we have used that money, if you will. And so I just think the bicyclist one, like 3rd of July comes to mind. I remember seeing them there. So that's a little bit easier to think about how that could have been used inside the park, but I don't know if you have other examples of like having the bicyclists or some of these other products have really, or tools, I should say, not products, tools have really changed how that looks in the kind of details.
We can harvest some statistics for you in terms of the bicycle use, and we have that in one of the quarterly reports.
Yeah, that's
The
what I
body cams, I think we've already seen some demonstrable advantages in that, just in the body cam footage we've shown you several times. And as we gather that, uses for evidence in court and transparency in what we do and how we do it. So I'll continue to bring videos to you in future meetings and show you some examples of how that's worked to the advantage of crime fighting.
There's horses available right now. Seattle's.
Horses.
Those are some expensive horses.
No, we don't need any. I just wanted to say that the police department has always been visible, to me at least, but you're really visible the last month or so.
Oh.
So I thought, wow, you're out there.
It really helps to have a lot of young, new, eager officers that want to do this job. I'll be frank with you, and I really like to see those folks because they kind of invigorate all the rest of us. That's what you're seeing. The new people out there doing what they really love to do.
Okay.
And
Councilor Sommer?
I was just going to go off of what she said. I had to give a report out at Park and Rec on Tuesday night, and I was reading the police report. And I wrote down, to check with you, it was 479 incidents for patrol in 1 week. I was like, did I read that right? And so it goes along with what you're saying. So is that, so can you remind me, what is normal? Is there a normal? 479. It just.
Fluctuates here or there, maybe 50 calls, per week, back and forth.
Okay. Anyone else? I think we're going to. Are you done with this one? Okay. Because I have a feeling we're going to have a long evening after you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was on the one that's posted.
So did you want me to do a 5-minute break? All right. So we'll officially take a 5-minute break. We'll be back by 9 o'clock. Thank you. We're back in session. And now we're getting, what? Did someone say? Okay, it's getting a little late for us, and so we're getting a little rummy. Okay, so we're going to move on to the fourth review of the draft comprehensive plan with our senior planner, Jonathan Morales.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. Jonathan Morales, senior planner. I'm here today with Mandy Roberts from our consulting team, OTAC, supporting me today. So we're here today for our fourth review of the Vision 2044 Comprehensive Plan update. Just a quick agenda. We wanted to recap the recommended land use map and also address some requests for information from our last meeting regarding some land capacity results. So we have that updated land capacity analysis that's responding to the preferred alternative that we selected, which is reflected in the recommended land use map. Review of the updated draft plan. So we have a few slides just addressing some of the key changes that we've made on the plan. So the last meeting, you were presented with the recommended draft by Planning Commission. In your packet today, you should have a public review draft, which incorporates all of the feedback that we've heard thus far. And then time for questions and discussion. So in terms of the land use map, I just wanted to bring this slide back. So we had a robust process with Planning Commission. This is derived from our alternative 2 in our draft EIS. So there are some updates, and some of those key changes are we have these neighborhood mixed-use centers, which are centered around existing commercial nodes, leveraging proximity to neighborhood commercial opportunities, services, and transportation options. We have residential designations that accommodate middle housing densities, accessory dwelling units, and single-family properties. You'll see some higher densities proposed along these transportation corridors. So some of those deeper yellow, for example, is accommodating up to 4 units per lot or a fourplex. And then additionally, near transit station, we have some higher densities proposed as well. So south of town center, we have this area here, which is residential 3, accommodates multifamily and other higher density, more dense forms of middle housing. Our gateway mixed use, which was previously freeway Terrace, that's just changed in terms of building height. We were previously allowing up to 20 stories in one of the building districts in that zone. We're just bringing it down to 12 to be more realistic and compatible with the town center vision. And then portions of town center reserve at the south end here, we upzone that a bit to neighborhood mixed use to take advantage of proximity to shoreline where there's some existing denser housing. Other changes that's not noted on the slide is our light industry office park district. In this northwest corner here, that is now our employment zone. So still allows the same uses. Nothing has changed in that aspect. Mobile home parks, we renamed to manufactured home parks, and we're preserving that zone. And then generally, the rationale for these higher densities is we're leveraging existing density. So where there was medium density, for example, that's just compatible with residential 4 or neighborhood mixed use, for example, and no down zoning. In terms of the sound transit site, so right here at 220th Street, that was previously general commercial. We've changed that to public facilities and services land use, and that is to accommodate direction from Planning Commission, an interest in seeing a 220th Street light rail station right there. Yeah. So for our updated land capacity analysis, just wanted to note that, so I'm comparing here alternative 2, which was studied in the DEIS, the draft EIS, and then our preferred alternative, that land use map that I just showed. So there's a bit of an uptick, slight uptick in housing units, uptick in population, and you'll notice a minor downtick in jobs, and that's basically because we removed that general commercial land use category from the sound transit site. But we're still able to meet our targets. So for 2044, target for housing is 16,816. So we're well above that, well above population target, and well above our jobs target. And then just a correction in this number.
Jonathan?
Yes.
I have a question here.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Jonathan. I wanted to ask now because it might be the appropriate time to ask. I'm actually following up on a question that Councilmember Murray asked previously, which was, what did we plan for previously, and what were the actual numbers versus what we planned for, and then actual, and then kind of like a budget. You have your proposed. And then you have your actual. So I remember you're asking about that. I don't remember what the answer was.
So our 2035 target was, I don't know the rough number, but it was around 24,000-ish. We're basically there with our current population estimate of 24,260. So in terms of like population, we're there. In terms of housing units, I don't recall what the target was for 2035, but our baseline right now is about 9,202 units.
Yeah, I'd be curious about housing and jobs also. Recognizing exactly, I mean, we're right on target on population, except that was our 2035 number, right? And we're hitting our 2035 number in 2024, so that's why I think the actuals are important to pay attention to, so I'd just be curious what those numbers are. Thank you.
Yeah, I can bring that housing and job number next meeting. I failed to mention, so our total housing unit capacity for this preferred alternative is 8,197 units that we're able to accommodate. And that's just based on our buildable lands and available lands that are for redevelopment purposes. And then total job capacity of 4,896 jobs. In terms of income band, for housing units at the 0 to 80% of the area median income, we were showing previously a total capacity of 6,660 units. With this new preferred alternative, there's a slight uptick, so 6,723 units that we're able to accommodate in that income range. And that includes 724 units, I believe, of permanent supportive housing. And then for that middle income range of 80 to 120, we have a total capacity of 1,327 units. And then for above 120% AMI, total capacity of 147 units, which puts us at a deficit of 2,407. But per statute, we don't need to accommodate that as long as we're meeting our total housing capacity needs. Any comments here?
Do we have any questions, comments?
And I'll just speak to that increase in the 0 to 80% is because of that upzoning for some of those areas where there's neighborhood mixed use zoning.
So I am confused on this one because the over 120%, that's almost all what we're building, and yet we're still in the minus.
Oh, sorry.
Basically, what that's reflecting is the capacity of the land that we have. So the total carrying capacity, basically, for homes, the homes that we're looking to provide through this plan are looking to provide the ability to construct. There isn't enough land to construct those additional basically single-family homes with traditional neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on the slide?
I don't see anyone.
So we were asked to bring the numbers per neighborhood mixed-use node. So we've identified 6 nodes and some smaller nodes in terms of how many housing units could be accommodated in this category. So in total, about 3,266 housing units among that neighborhood mixed-use capacity, which equates to 1,047 jobs. Where there's greater capacities in this node here, adjacent to 220th and the I-5 corridor intersection, and node 5, which is the town center area. So that includes this area here and this south part here. And so the uses that would be accommodated are multifamily, mixed use, and ground floor active uses with a max height of 4 to 6 stories. Any questions?
Mayor Pro Tem Wall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Jonathan, for providing this. This is very insightful, I think, and provide some good information, particularly recognizing our town center and gateway neighborhoods being driving a lot of the growth, but I was surprised on Node 2 versus, I would think Node 1 is more of a, although it's not much residential, but I was surprised to see, so we're planning on some kind of a lot of redevelopment in that Node 2.
Yeah, so that was at Planning Commission recommendation. So there was some expansion of neighborhood mixed use right at the intersection of 220th and I-5. So these parcels here were upzoned to neighborhood mixed use. There was also interest in upzoning west of Jack Long Park, these parcels here. And then this is the St. Pius Church parcel, which they've come into the city before with an interest in pursuing future affordable housing development. So just to leverage that interest, apply the neighborhood mixed use zone.
Good, thank you. And then maybe a little more on, I was also surprised on Node 6. I guess it makes sense considering it's adjacent to the Sound Transit light rail, but it's very much a low-density, single-family zone currently. So we're looking at doing some rezoning on that as well then. So really, to me, the surprises were 2 and 6. And when you talk about the capacity, those are the additional, what we're expecting in the 20-year period.
Correct.
To 607 additional units to be in Node 5, for instance.
Correct.
I'm sorry, and then 524 in Node 6. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
And,
Go ahead.
And 5, I see the circle kind of below town center. What about the actual town center?
The actual town center?
Yeah.
So I don't have that in a slide, and I don't.
I'm sorry, that's another, is that a different slide? Town center here, 2,800. A couple of slides down. Sorry, carry on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would just point out, Jonathan, that town center hasn't changed really. We're retaining the same zoning that was approved as part of the town center plan.
Right. Okay. So this one's a bit tricky. So what we're showing here is residential capacity that is just based on our land capacity, buildable lands inventory. So with that, total capacity is 506 housing units amongst the 4 residential districts that we are showing here. But in terms of middle housing and ADU, that's calculated a bit differently. So if I believe there's a 20% percentage that's applied to get to this number of 1,024 middle housing units, and that's just duplex and fourplex capacity that we're able to accommodate with this alternative, and 64 ADU units. You can go.
Yeah, and I guess it would be interesting to, and this is where when we get to the performance measures, for instance, tracking that. I'm really curious to see, I mean, we all know that middle housing is needed. Mm-hmm. It'll be very interesting to see what the actual numbers are over the next, 5, 10, 20 years. So just keeping that, so we'll come back to that on the performance measures. Thank you.
And then for the other land use designations, so Gateway Mixed Use has a capacity of 333 housing units, 487 jobs. Town Centers 1 through 3 have a capacity of 2,807 units and 1,536 jobs. Town Center Reserve, 197 housing units. And then for employment, our employment zones are general commercial and employment, so 898 jobs in general commercial, 947 employment. In terms of emergency housing capacity, we need to demonstrate that we have enough capacity to allow emergency housing in terms of shelter beds. So we have a need for 475 beds, emergency shelter beds. We're demonstrating capacity for 6,358 beds. So a majority of that, about 60%, is accommodated in the neighborhood mixed use land use category. Any questions?
Go ahead, Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. On the emergency housing capacity, for me, that'd be hard to calculate. Is it for projected places that we could have it? Or are they like churches we have now? How is something like that? I'm just curious how we kind of figure that out.
So-
What buildings are we looking at?
So basically, it's based on buildable acreage in zones where we currently allow for hotels hotel dwellings. And then that's multiplied by an assumed shelter bed density. So that looks at like existing examples. So we've applied a 33 bed shelter bed density per acre. So that is how we got that 6,358 number. Our consultant, Leland Consulting Group, put the numbers together, and they can better speak to like the methodology, and I can make sure that I bring that next time.
So this is future.
Future, yeah, so over the 20-year horizon.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just kind of curious on that. Thanks.
Yeah, again, it'd be fascinating to see, I mean, the methodology behind the percentage for middle housing, ADUs, and emergency shelter, it's a methodology, not an actual, oh, hey, we have a place for these homes, beds, whatever to be,
right.
And planning versus reality is going to be interesting.
Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll just tack on to that comment, sort of definition-wise, what's an ADU versus a duplex versus a, what have you. I know that we'll get into that, later down the road in terms of ADUs, but I think it's, if we are going to set up some sort of points out in the future to engage this again, I think it would be, worth doing with a fairly thoughtful set of definitions. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Ryan.
I wanted to add, I really appreciate forecasting all this for Washington state mandates. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, so these are just demonstrating how we can meet these mandates. And it's just 20-year horizon doesn't mean that we're going to reach this, but we're demonstrating through land use and zoning that we can accommodate it at least.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. All right, so as you recall, the recommended draft plan that Planning Commission forwarded was based on feedback from them on goals and policies. There was several workshopping of goals and policies per element, as well as the vision statement, comments received on the community profile and introduction chapter, a full element chapter review. They helped us select the preferred alternative, alternative 2. Our land use map was derived from that and has since been updated. And then also help strategize some key priorities for 2 of our focus sub areas for this process, Melody Hill and Cascade View. And all these recommendations have been reflected are in your draft plan that is before you today. We also heard from Planning Commission in terms of future interest and things that they would like to see down the line annually is revisiting sub-areas. So maybe there's focusing on one sub-area per year in terms of identifying new priorities or ways to improve those sub-areas. And guidance on design and development standards and zoning, which we will be doing straight after this comp plan process. So we've heard feedback.
Christmas and New Year, maybe. Take a break.
Yes. So between the recommended draft and the draft that's before you, we received some feedback and comments that we made sure were integrated. And one of the key ones that we wanted to bring before you is some concerns on the 57th Avenue alignment. That is Main Street Phase 3, and that's in our town center sub-area plan. So we heard from the West Plaza Ownership Group. Many of their concerns have been addressed in the Economic Development Strategic Plan, as well as this comprehensive plan. So one way that we've addressed some of the concerns on potential impacts to existing businesses and concerns about displacement is we've come up with some implementation strategies that we've tied to this policy in our economic vitality element, policy EV 3.5, which states, continue to invest in public realm improvements for a vibrant, walkable town center and identified mixed-use neighborhood centers. And the way we will implement that is specific to Main Street revitalization. Is the goal for the development of Main Street private development is to acquire right-of-way through redevelopment efforts in town center. Specific to this project, the city will not utilize tools such as eminent domain to achieve this goal. The city will work with existing businesses to mitigate displacement risk as redevelopment occurs, such as the exploration of negotiated development agreements for relocation of businesses or relocation assistance. And then we have in policy EV 2.8, this is specific to assisting businesses and ensuring that there's anti-displacement measures. Thank you. So we just put that as a call out. There's other implementation strategies that sort of speak to this concern. So any questions or comments on this?
Mayor Protem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What I've passed out, we've had some additional discussions with the West Plaza Group and about this implementation strategy, but also some other areas that we can improve our comprehensive plan to be more clear about I think, our intent, the council's intent, and ensuring that we are not displacing businesses and providing assistance, and just some policies that we can include in the comprehensive plan that that I wanted to share with you as well in our continuing discussions and working with the group. I think we're real close to having. I'm hoping that they're comfortable with where we're at and where we're going, but at any rate, these are some policies to help us address their concerns. Some additional policies that help address their concerns. And I don't know if he wanted to go on any more detail about that, but I just wanted to make sure everybody had a copy of proposed policies that we'd also like to be incorporating into the plan.
Are you saying that if no one has any objection to this, that we would incorporate it?
Yes, thank you. This is in working with the West Plaza, some language that they've shared to help address their concerns about 57th and how they've gotten to where they are. So this is just an attempt to help address their concerns and give them assurance that we're not.
Then I would oppose this because I would want to look at this a little bit more, and we haven't gone into the reasons why we had done that originally. I'm not for displacing somebody, but the way it was talked to us at the very end, it was very specific in what they wanted, and I was afraid that how the council heard it, there could be some legal implications about how it was repeated back to us. And I know it's in the comp plan, but we don't have the whole story on 57th. I think people need to understand why it was put there, how it was put there. If we're not going to do it there, then where are we going to do it? And I'm just a little bit uncomfortable just getting this now and not understanding where it came from originally, because it was just passed down, and trying to understand what exactly this all means. I mean,
That's why I wanted to pass it out, so you have the language, take a look at it. I think it helps address their concerns, but also I think once you read the actual language, it'll be hopefully clear as to what the intent is to help address some of their, public outreach, making sure that, and we do this already, all right? I mean, we have in our code areas of, that we do outreach, but this is putting in some policy language to ensure that we're doing our job in letting people know that something's going to happen.
So are we going to do this on 236 too? Don't we have a street there, so we should vacate that as well? Because we're giving one landowner an option to come in. Maybe we should look at that other landowners over there and give them the options.
It doesn't say anything about vacating. Please read the language.
Oh, we do have something in the code, though, that we won't be using any takings of any property. Why are you giving me that look? I'm just asking questions.
Please read the language. That's why we provided it.
Okay, so we're going to take 10 minutes and we can all digest this, or are we going to go word by word so we can understand? Because you're giving us new code and new language, and I need to make sure I understand it. So,
Please
and so you went to the plaza and got this language from them? Is that where it came from?
We've had some meetings and discussions and emails, and yes.
Who had meetings and who had discussions?
Myself and the city manager and.
Because we should be disclosing some of that. I mean, we've been all talked to on some of it. And the reason I asked this, we had a city council member actually want us to rezone her property, and we didn't even know it was her property. And so that's why I'm asking questions, because Steve mentioned we have to ask those hard questions. I need to understand, that what goes on in the background and what's going on.
So we met with the property owners, the Chamber of Commerce actually says the one that set it up, and the president of the chamber.
And only
Diamond,
you on council were invited? And nobody else on council knew about it, or?
I asked for the meeting. I was interested in understanding their concerns and helping find solutions.
And then, so you also, are we going to look at how we're going to control traffic through our downtown?
That's part of another policy in our economic development strategy.
Okay.
I'm not trying to win. I'm trying to.
I know that politics that go behind some of this sometimes, and I'm not going to disclose it here.
I'm trying to provide a win for the business community and the property owners that raised the concern.
Okay, so did you have a question? Go ahead, Councilman Barone.
That'd be a question. This is something for us to review. We're not voting on this right now. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, we can't vote tonight anyhow because it's a work session, but.
It's
a good
seeking
question.
clarification, please.
Yeah, it is language for us to consider, including in the comp plan during public hearing and adoption next week.
Oh, Okay, thank you.
So I'd encourage you to reach out to the property owners and have a discussion with them like I'd have, and get their input and insight.
Councilmember Woodard?
So I'm slow, but I eventually get there. Thank you, Mayor. First, I just want to let you know, thank you, Councilmember Sonmore, for speaking up. Just walk me through, am I to take this, let's just start with the top one, economic vitality X.X. What is the X actually going to X out that's already in there, so I understand how this fits, so I don't want to have to go through and realize, well, actually this, if I say yes to it, technically would negate something that's not there. Is that, I don't know.
Yeah, no, correct. It's X, it would be, so if you look at the policies, the goals and policies, it is land use policy 1.2, land use followed by 0.3, 0.4, right? And then, so I don't know what.
Yeah, I understand how that works. What I'm asking you is, will this, let's just give it 1.1. Will that new 1.1, by definition, remove whatever the 1.1 is now?
No.
Will it modify it?
No.
So how is this?
No.
I guess you're trying to tell us this is going to just slide in nicely.
rewritten, right?
That doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm trying to figure out what's being disrupted.
Would be for X.X so that staff could place it where it seems most appropriate, whether it's.
Okay, let me reframe this. I don't care about the numbers, right? So I'm not worried about, oh, now 1.1's got to be renumbered to 2.7. That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking this content that you have, what is it replacing? Because it has, I mean, why would you, how can you say it doesn't replace something?
It's adding a policy. It would add a policy.
So by adding, is it adjusting anything else?
No.
Interesting. Okay, well, I got to see it in context. I don't know how to read this. I just see a context, and I got to now go back to each section and slide it in there. But you're telling me, no, it doesn't disrupt anything that's already in place.
Correct.
Interesting. Okay.
Councilmember Payne Donovan?
Thank you, Mary. I think if for our next meeting materials, if we could have a red line, that would be helpful.
Yeah, it's just like you just handed us something, we don't have any, thank you for pointing that out. And that's what I was trying to, we don't have any reference. It's like, okay, we're supposed to plug that in here and this in here, and does it affect all property? You know, we don't have any, and I don't know if Jonathan has seen this, and I don't know if he's gonna plug and play it, but we need to have the pros and cons from the city on this as well, understanding, you know, what it means. You know, we're just given a piece of paper tonight, and we're supposed to digest it without having any background on what it does, and so I appreciate those comments.
Councilmember Woodard?
I'm already a record as saying I'm slow, but eventually I will get there, so let me get there. And we should start thinking about extending 10 o'clock. That stated, help me see it a different way. We had a wonderful public comment for something for 9 years. Somebody has been apparently in some way, shape, or form telling us about something, even has come so far to say there's funding out there, won't even cost you anything. Now has come to point out how unique that much more you will be. And he even points out at the bottom, this is the adjustment. Can we slide that in and have it not impact anything?
Yes, I was going to, when we got to, I was going to advocate for that later.
Okay. So just making sure that we're saying that's effectively what's happening here, because his argument is this will change something. This will allow us to do something for the record, right? So it did change something.
Right.
So that's what I'm asking over here. This is going to change something, but you're telling me it isn't.
It doesn't replace anything. All right.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to know, so please advocate for these so we don't have to spend all week trying to understand what you already know and then come in to vote on something we still won't necessarily understand.
So it would add a policy. So go to the bottom two. It would add a policy to review all city so context, remember what West Plaza has been asking for. and the challenges.
Actually, humor me, I don't remember what they're asking for. Let's make sure we agree. So what are they asking for since you've spent time with them?
So they're concerned about eminent domain and the city taking their property. Now, realistically, that's not the plan. But their concern is that by having our policies in the street placed the way it is, they're concerned that we have the ability to do so. So part of the language, so for instance, the language that Jonathan's pointing out in EV 3.5 is saying that that's not going to happen unless we have a public review process for them to provide feedback. Okay? So then, likewise, under the potential transportation policy and utilities policy, we would review any transportation or public works projects after initial design and before funding for construction to mitigate displacement risk and minimize impacts to private property owners, including consideration that projects may necessitate property condemnation, right-of-way acquisition, and/or eminent domain. So what that says is basically we're providing a public process for us to have to consider. It's ensuring a public process for us to have to consider whether or not we're going to take that property through eminent domain or condemnation, rather than it just happening behind the scenes, so it happening to them. That's what they're concerned about.
So that applies to what areas? All of our downtown? And we're already doing some of that. So are we going?
Right. And
so once we change this, now can the people that we're doing this with come back and we have to go through a public process? I mean,
there already is a public process and it's in code. This is providing policy language in the comprehensive plan that will be implemented through the code that we already have.
We already have a code on it, but you want to put it in the code already? I didn't understand what you just said.
We're putting it, so the comprehensive plan is implemented through code, development code, and regulations. So we have the code and regulations in place already. We don't have policy language in our comprehensive plan addressing it. They're asking that we do.
So what I'm asking, I want to understand the repercussions of what that means to other places in our city.
So remember the council meeting that we recently had about the letters that went out?
That's what I'm talking about.
That's public process. That's.
But that public process didn't go very well. And I'm not blaming anything, but I'm just saying, and then we've tried to take other properties that we should talk about that had some issues and certain reasons for those, and then there's certain issues. But you're just saying this enhances what we already have in the, I'm just trying to make sure that we're all level set.
Yes.
Because it's just, we're seeing this from you, but I would like city, you know, I mean, even Kenan, I mean, I just want to understand. It's just the way it's been brought to us is a little confusing. So.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This was
Well,
all been happening.
so I'm not asking you to say, I'm sorry, I'm just asking the question.
This has all been happening in the last week, so we offered some initial implementation strategies. They had some additional feedback and ideas that they wanted to address in policy. So these were some of the policies that they were asking for. So again, part of it is the review process and putting it in the comprehensive plan as a policy in addition to the code that we already have in place. You mentioned that that the communication didn't go well. So that's land use XX, X.X. Adopt communication and outreach procedures, create clear project management criteria, and facilitate timely engagement of impacted property owners, residents, and businesses to encourage participation, gathering community input for city plans and projects, and maintain an interested parties communication list for city projects and plans. So again, we have that process in place, but maybe it wasn't fully utilized. So we're trying to reinforce the need to do that by having a policy. And then up above is a business retention plan. So if businesses are potentially at risk of displacement because of a public works project that we initiate, we take measures to support existing business retention, and just like we did during Main Street Phase 1, when businesses and residents were impacted, we developed an extensive communication program with the community to let people know that businesses were open and provide additional transportation and traffic flow routes. If you remember, during Phase 1, that's what we did. That's putting a policy in place to ensure that that happens again. Again, this is just additional feedback that we've, in response to their concerns that we've heard from them, trying to address their concerns by putting it, and remember when they raised their concerns, there were a number, and when we talked about it during the economic development strategy, there are a number of different places that we need to address their concerns. One of them was economic development strategy by adopting the goal that we did there. Part of it is in the comprehensive plan. Part of it will be in the development regulations implementing the comprehensive plan. So and part of it is in the budget. So it's just understanding their concerns, trying to address their concerns in a number of different ways to help ensure their comfort in knowing that we're not going to just underhandedly take their property, which we can't afford to do.
But it's a legislative issue too, then on top of it. But I think you're telling Steve too that you're looking at taking all the property. It was there for 57th. And I don't want to get into, I just want people to understand the background of what's going on and why there was the road there and why they were going all the way through. Maybe we move it over or do something different, but I still think we need to address the original concern.
The original concern from
the standpoint of getting traffic through to our downtown, because we're landlocked with really 56.
And nothing's going to happen unless the private property owner decides that they want it to happen. But they're concerned that legally we have the ability to have eminent domain the property, take the property through eminent domain. We're not going to do that, and that's what we're trying to make clear in policy and in the goals and in the policy and in development regulations that we're not going to do it.
Doesn't do it for me because we still have 57th on the books. And so we're not really taking it out of there. I know Christy said we just don't have to do it, but I believe that's a legislative act that the council has to do. And it's still on the books. And so I'm still trying to understand how this is going to protect them.
It protects, it's something that they're interested in and believe will help provide sunshine, kind of the Sunshine Act, if you will, to ensure that there is a public process. There is already legally a public process. You're right, it would take an act of the council to do something to take their property, which we're not going to do because we can't afford to do it. It's in the books to allow a private developer to put it in place if they decide that's what they want to do. But it's not going to happen unless a private property owner decides that they want to do it. Their concern is that by having it in the books, the city has the legal ability to take their property from them through eminent domain. We're not going to do that. We have no intention of doing that. So that's what we're trying to do in a number of different places to assure them that we're not taking their property through eminent domain.
And pretty much this is clarification.
And I think if they really wanted it off the books, we would look at our downtown center plan and update that piece rather than doing something that we already kind of have. So that's where my issue goes too. I don't know if you're really trying to get that new road off of there. If
We're not trying to get the road off of there. We're trying to ensure that the city will not take it through eminent domain.
you're promising that we won't take their property through just that piece of property. See, that's what I'm saying. It has to go to everybody, because you have to do, but we already do that. So that's why it just.
Talk to the property owner. That's all I can say, is we're trying to address their concerns.
Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and I realize this is a big topic, and I guess I'll just say, while we're sort of on the record here, that I appreciate the effort that's going into sort of address these concerns. We've had this sort of underlying town center plan on the books for a while now, and we've got a lot of things happening in town center and across town. I think it's a nice thing to sort of show up in good faith and respond to concerns of one of our sort of cornerstone, sort of business buildings in town, and sort of do it in a way that also sort of keeps our existing planning efforts intact. I think I agree with comments that the Mayor Pro Tem's already made about sort of the potential 57th and any of the other sort of cut-through streets that Town Center envisions. And I think that where we can do anti-displacement for business owners specifically, it's while it doesn't get us away from, or it doesn't cede any of our existing authority. I think it shows that this council is showing up to sort of say that we're not going to take their business or do anything of that sort as we work to execute the town center plan more broadly. So I think this threads the needle as well as we might hope, and appreciate the efforts that have been put into it so far. Thank you.
With eminent domain, we have to do signage, we have to relocate them, we have this whole thing that we have to go through. In fact, Sean's going through it, one of our former council members is going through that right now with some of his business, and so it is something, and Kenan can explain it really well, but you have to do signage, you have to do replacement of, there's a whole list of things that, and then you also get compensated. And there's also different ways that you can do it without getting taxed and getting taxed. It depends on how you file, and so there's a lot that goes with it that we're required to do, whether we put it in our comp plan or not.
So for right now, we're just going to hand this out and they can digest it? All right. Okay. Councilmember Woodard.
Just so I'm clear, did you just identify yourself as being a part of those conversations?
Pardon?
Did you just say that you were a part of those? As I was hearing it, it was Brian and the plaza owners, one is represented here.
Oh, yeah, I was invited.
More of them. I just want to make sure you said that out loud, because you said we, and that helps to know, oh, there were two of you in that conversation. Good to know. And again, transparency, process, and the interesting thing here is I was giving a talk today on authenticity, quality of place, and Mountlake Terrace was the subject. And part of being authentic means yourself is authentic. And I will just say I'm very sensitive, and I'm just going to say this was handed to me, and every time I look at this, it just feels off. And I don't mean the content, I mean the presentation, which I feel is emblematic of what I'm trying to say. Something's off. I love it. I can read it. I can understand it. I've been messing you saying I'm slow, but something's off. And I can't figure out what it is. And I don't know why I feel this way, but I do think in the spirit of, we have a lawyer, what did our lawyer say? I mean, you know, again, I have a hard time believing if I put this in here, it doesn't do anything. It does something, and it concerns me that I don't know what that is, but I'm going to hamstring future folks because, as I said last meeting, I do think this council, historically speaking, isn't afraid of eminent domain, since that's the language we're using now, in the spirit of we have been very clear as a council that we want this road. So maybe that's the history that's missing. So when I say up here that I don't want to just write that off because this council's doesn't want to have a hard conversation, we need to go back to that because somebody along the line said we did want this. And here we are in 2024 saying, well, do we? And I'm saying, well, I think we did. And again, my take on it was only an issue if they sold, right? And that's how I've always come at this. So my same comment, if you're selling, then how is this your concern? In the spirit of, I don't know how this plays out. And that's the piece where I'm like, how does this come in the last minute and now we're going to vote on this in a week? And again, I'm not convinced that I understand it, and it just feels off, period. I appreciate that you're asking us to do what many of us and you yourself do, which is listen to our community, but I don't think that means I have to be swayed by that. I can be empathetic to it, but I don't know that means I have to be swayed by it. And I'm feeling that we're getting those two concepts confused in some weird, authentic way that I can't understand yet. But I got less than a week to figure it out, don't I?
Shall we look at extending past 10 o'clock right now? How many minutes after 10 shall we extend it to? Do we need another 30 minutes to 10:30?
I think that's enough, yeah.
Okay. So do we vote on this? That we extend this until 10:30? All in favor?
Aye.
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 I'll second the motion.
All opposed? Oh, yeah. That's right. So we're going to go until 10:30.
All right. Your concerns and comments were well noted, and we'll figure out a path forward on this. Let's see. So another item of feedback we heard was interest in incorporating performance measures in our comprehensive plan. So just want to note our implementation strategies do sort of speak to that. So we have implementation strategies for each element that includes strategies that the city can take to implement key goals and policies. In our past comprehensive plan, we have this language here that we've put back in our proposed comprehensive plan. So it just speaks to the city will make a good faith effort to meet or exceed the actions identified in these strategies, check the data with respect to each of the implementation strategies, and report the results. And then the strategies that we've selected speak to this following criteria: relevance to the goals, meaningfulness to the public, and availability of data. Just wanted to ask if this sort of speaks to your comment on integrating performance measures in the comprehensive plan.
I was reading, sorry about that. Mayor Pro Tem Hall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I appreciate the performance measures, the implementation steps more than you know. I mean, I think there's a lot of great activities and actions that we intend to take, and I look forward to checking them off the box, but that's not what was intended by performance measures. If you look back at our 2015 comprehensive plan, at the end of each chapter, there's performance measures tracking, basically, activities of number of housing units being created each year, just to see where we're on track, number of jobs being created each year, where we were with like air quality. I mean, each chapter had a couple of performance measures. And for instance, as we were talking about earlier, I'd be really interested in tracking the number of units created, additional dwelling units created, the number of middle housing units being created, just so that have an understanding of what's going on out there. And, this is our goal, this is our plan, this is what we hope to achieve, but is it happening? And having a clear understanding of, and are we on track to get 20% of additional units being middle housing? Are we on track to 5%? And if we're not, then how do we adjust our plans moving forward when we do our next comprehensive plan update? In other words, we've created this, Commerce has created this methodology that we're supposed to incorporate into and how we've come up with these numbers. What is that methodology based on? How are they coming up with these numbers? And I'm sure that there's good science and math and whatever behind it, but is it accurate? And so I'm just going to be curious where we're at in 5 years and in 10 years, and if in fact we're seeing that kind of development occur.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so we will do like annual review of the comprehensive plan policies, so we can look into speaking to some of those items, and then we're required to do a 5-year implementation progress report, which can be done anytime between that 5-year time frame before we have the 10-year update requirement. So I can work with the staff on coming up with some more defined performance measures. Lastly, we probably won't need the 30 minutes. Any other questions or comments?
Anyone?
Can I just ask a follow-up? And I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but I know where we were planning to put a road in 236, some developers came in and they told the person where that road would go in, their house isn't as valued as the other homes. And so that's why I bring a lot of this up too, is because there's other implications that go along with changing stuff that we haven't even really talked about. And maybe it's something that, we need to look at and understand that a little bit better. But I don't want to talk too much about it, but it was something that came up a while back. And so that's why I guess I'm a little sensitive to the road issue too, and being fair to other areas as well.
Understood. The purpose of the comprehensive plan is to come up with policies that are holistic, or they can be more action-oriented. Then we have these functional plans like Town Center Sub-Area Plan, which sets the vision for the Town Center sub-area. And then Main Street revitalization, which is through the Public Works Department, institutes that vision and ensures that there's adequate public engagement and a preliminary design process before there's a construction happens. So it's a very well thought out process, multi-year process that takes a lot of coordination with internal departments as well as members of the public. So next meeting, we have our public hearing.
We have a question here.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just looping back to Dale Jeremiah's message, can we, I don't know their support from the rest of council on that, but I'd be interested in pursuing that language, just so we get some more information about the pedestrian bridge. I mean, he's mentioned it and brought it up numerous times, and I'd just be interested in knowing more about it and if it's something that's feasible.
Yeah, he also asked for one to the light rail through our park. And so this one, I'm assuming, is through our other park, because 51st, go down to 28th, that dead ends, and there's a private road, and I'm assuming that's
228
where.
all the way to 250, to 228 from, through Terrace Creek Park.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but I was thinking the other one on page 159, the safe routes to school and a couple other things, I don't have any data what he's actually looking for there. And my goal isn't, Jonathan, that's a lot to go through. And so I was wondering if there were certain ones that we were looking at more than others. And there would be an evaluation of that bridge, because the bridge that we looked at of putting it into this park over here was millions of dollars. And so if we put a bridge there, I'm wondering if that, what exactly that does. But I'm interested in some of his other ones.
Okay, I don't see any other hands. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, while we're on the bridge topic, I think I'm totally supportive of investigating this and hopefully building a bridge. But I guess the question I have is, as you know, we've got all the, active transportation, multimodal elements throughout the document here. Where else, in terms of sort of project lists and prioritization, outside of the comprehensive plan, might we sort of reinforce at a later date if we are in agreement on moving forward with this concept?
I think probably we can take a look at it in the comp plan, but probably the most appropriate place is the pedestrian, I can't even think of the name now, but the pedestrian mobility plan that we look at throughout the whole city in conjunction with the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan.
Is that the active transportation plan? Okay, cool.
And from what I gather, he just wants this to be in the plan. Obviously, it's going to be expensive, so it's not going to get done right away, but it will be in the plan for any future. And so any future council members can see that, oh, here's this thing in the plan. Why don't we, now that we have the ability to do it, let's do it. Mm-hmm. I see a suspension bridge, although I would be afraid to go across one, but Councilmember Sanmore.
I was just going to agree. I don't mind it being in there. I just wanted to know a little bit more information, especially I think for, going into Park and Rec, we could talk about it, but it might also preserve part of that park and stuff. So it's not that I don't like the idea. I like the idea when he wanted a bridge in our other park. So I think it's worth exploring. I think he's come to us quite a bit, and we need to recognize that, he has a passion for the city and to look into this.
Councilmember Payne Donovan?
Yeah, I want to gondola instead. No, I think it's actually it's important that we have.
To the sky bar.
I think it's important that we have, given that this is likely seated within the active transportation plan, that we can look at, different funding sources and compete for,
right.
Things to sort of build things that convey folks across town. I know that a lot of folks that I know on the east side of town actually have asked us about trails and other better conveyance across the ravine, as Dale so eloquently lays out. And I think this, in terms of strategy for funding in the future is something that isn't really a zero-sum game with our other transportation priorities elsewhere in the city. So I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
All right, I don't see anyone else. Are we almost done?
Yes, so, yeah, next meeting is our public hearing, and just wanted to know, yesterday we published our final EIS, which included updated analysis on that preferred alternative, as well as Chapter 3, which is responding to comments that we received during the draft EIS comment period. So Chapter 3, we have this sort of table here that includes staff comments responding to each of the comments that we received, and that includes the West Plaza group as well. And we have our public review draft on our website, and so that's available to the public. So any comments that we receive today, staff will, figure out the next steps to bring before you an updated draft that includes those comments or direction moving forward.
Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor. Jonathan, where can folks find those updated materials since they're not on the agenda? The agenda's not there for next meeting yet, looking online.
The updated.
Yeah, the updated EIS materials and the other things you just mentioned, where
So
can
on our
folks
main
find those?
page, City of MLT, the main page, there's the bottom, there's these green boxes. If you select Vision 2044, we have our final EIS posted there, as well as if you scroll down to Documents and Resources, the first link is the public review draft.
Great, thank you.
That's it.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so next next week, we're canceling our Thursday night meeting so that we can all go to the dinner, to the Snohomish County City's dinner. And then so we're meeting on Wednesday, the 16th. And I saw the agenda, so the agenda is on there. So go ahead.
And just my comment, this is a big agenda, and I would think that would take priority over a cities and towns meeting. And so I'm just putting it out there because now you've displaced people and staff to come on a Wednesday instead of a Thursday. And prior, we used to take turns going to cities and towns. We didn't usually have problems because at one point, I think we even had them on Wednesday, but I'm just throwing it out there. Are we looking at all the time doing cities and towns? I know you're going to be talking about retail and police officers coming in to talk about something, but, I just have to always remember our citizens come first.
Well, I was told that we had enough people wanting to go to the cities and towns.
And I used to be president of cities and towns,
Right.
so I know all about cities and towns, but I'm just saying I won't be able to attend Wednesday's meeting next week because of that.
Go ahead, Councilmember Woodard.
Thank you. It's apparently the Sonmore-Woodard hour to vibe, because I'm right there with you. I've raised this to the city manager. How do I bring this up? I would like evidence that this has been a good use of our adjustment to our calendar, and not just because this week interrupts my Wednesday as well. Going back to this point, I haven't been able to make it to those Thursdays because there's enough of us there, and I think to myself, why are all 7 of us going? So I repurpose that, which I'm going to do again this Thursday. If 6 of you are making it, I'm more power to you. I'm going to get some other work done, which is just my way of doubling back to say, am I the only one who's not making it? If that's the case, then Woodard will make some adjustments. But if others aren't making it, it raises the question, are you giving us a day off? Or are we actually serving this city? And if you want to personalize that and say, well, Steve, you're not. Again, I go, what's my value added by going to that meeting? I'm focused on Mountlake Terrace. I have access to those folks in those rooms and other spaces. So to me, it's not as useful as it's being presented. So I'm asking, how do we actually revisit this concept, because I don't know why we absolutely have agreed to cancel it, but I didn't necessarily think that we should have. So I'm now speaking up because I didn't know we could revisit past decisions.
So we need to know if we want to continue to go to these meetings or not, because it can go either way. I was not expecting to do anything that everyone else didn't want to do. Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. No, I always appreciate the conversation, and I think it's a good opportunity to have the conversation. I think we probably should have the conversations when whatever the topic at hand is decided upon, and maybe we decide then. I will say personally, I find a lot of value in attending, both from a learning perspective. There was one in particular on budgets that, having, not gone through the budget process a million times before as a newer council member, I learned a lot and found a lot of value in, and I think generally I find a lot of value in connecting with colleagues who are facing similar but sometimes different situations in their own communities and learning how they have navigated those and taking learnings from that and bringing them and applying here. And that's me personally, right? And I can understand that, other people learn different ways or find information different ways, and it may not be valuable for everybody. And I will say some topics are more valuable than others to me. And so there have been times that I have decided not to go because of other commitments and because, the topic at hand did not feel as applicable to our citizens of Mountlake Terrace. But I do think there, at least for me, there has been a lot of value to the citizens here in Mountlake Terrace and me being able to go and learn about what folks across our county are doing, as well as they bring in a lot of experts in different spaces to help us better understand the work that we are doing. So I think there's value. I don't think there's always as much value, to me, depending on what the topic at hand is. But generally, I do find those a good use of time and a good, I think, value to our community, and at least for me, I have found value in attending when I have. So.
Well, I think that the January meeting is important because that's when we vote for the committees and everything. So I would like to see us support whoever is running for a committee so that we can be there to support them and vote. The others, I could go either way. I'm pretty much, if you change it to Wednesday, I'll come Wednesday night and go to the, or if we don't go to the dinner, it's fine with me. So go ahead.
And we could do maybe a portion of it. We used to have where we'd excuse a couple council people to go, but it's just this time, it just is bad timing for me. But what happens with cities and towns where it used to be is we used to bring in people that would help us learn how to talk in front of an audience, how to introduce yourself as a council member. We would do a lot of learning, but what I haven't liked is I don't like being told what to do from somebody who's from a certain organization that is their prime job, and they're trying to sell me on something when I don't have the other side there. And I like hearing both sides of the story. I just don't like being told what to do. And we get that groupthink mentality, and that's the part I don't like. And that's what I'm seeing sometimes at AWC, and I love AWC. And so just sometimes I think that we need to hear both sides of the story, and sometimes we don't always get that.
Okay. Councilmember Ryan.
I thought I'd just add a little FCC. Laura has been a past president. I have been the secretary treasurer for 4+ years. It's probably more like 8. But the idea of the SCC is mainly to network with other people in other cities in Snohomish County. And then when we did have our meetings here, we had Monday meetings and we had Thursday meetings, and it was only a couple Thursdays where we either had to move the Thursday or it wasn't a heavy voting event, so we had 2 people go and not the whole council go. And that also was when the city hall, the ceiling fell down, and we had to demolish City Hall. And then we went over there on 220th, and it was very expensive, and so we decided to start cutting our city council down to not everybody going to everything at AWC and not everything at Olympia and not everything at SCC. So we cut our costs down. So that's it. So now SCC's, or Snohomish County Cities and Towns, has gone from the networking and occasional someone to come in and talk to us to a little bit more pointed information to all the city council members and mayors in Snohomish County. I won't go into why it went that way, but I think you know how it got that way. So it went that way, but now all our meetings are Thursday. So do we go? We don't go. We don't network. 2 people go. But we got a lot of stuff coming up here Thursday. That's why we put it on Wednesday. And if people can't make it, it's important that you speak up. Because isn't this a major comp plan vote? Well, we better figure out what are we going to do? Got to figure it out. But I just wanted to give you a little background history that it was really meant, FCC was meant for networking. And some people put some stereotyped names on it to change it. And I know who they are because I was the secretary treasurer. So, but that has changed now, but it's kind of in that morphed way. So I don't know if there's something there we want to talk about later, or are we always going to go? But we do have a major vote coming up. And so I think it's important we are all here. I think, as the mayor said, it's important to be there January. That's for sure. So it's not going to break my heart to not go, but so what do we want to do? Keep it Thursday?
I think we have to
so
keep
everybody
it. It's
can
already been
go?
announced.
Huh?
I think it's fine just to leave it for now. Maybe we revisit it in January.
Well, yeah, but we all need to vote. So, any discussion?
You mean to change it? No. Is it? Well, I don't know if it's too late because we already sent out yeah, I see the clerk going, yeah, it's. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, 6 days till Wednesday, and I think this is a really important conversation. And I think we've already sort of set our course for the next week, but I would like to revisit this at the appropriate time. I'm not really in favor of changing away from our Thursday schedule. I think we deliberated on that and made the every Thursday call for good reasons, but I think we could have some better process about as we change meetings, make sure we're really diligently discussing why and whatnot before, well in advance, just so we're not caught off guard by big votes like this.
Okay. Councilmember Woodard?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just trying to run us the clock here, recognizing council comments. I just want to clarify, I will be here next Wednesday for the vote. I think your point stands that we should be here for this vote, and that if you can't, that's your decision. I've just made adjustments. I just want to revisit my concern. I feel like the two stances I've taken, I'm coming out the, what would you say, the villain here, or like the low ground, or the whatever. I don't have the high moral ground. I absolutely have found it very helpful to network with these folks. If you heard what I said, I get to do that all day. That's actually my job. So when I'm interacting with these folks during the day, I don't go, well, wait a minute, I'm going to wait till 6 o'clock because I'm going to be a council member then. I'm not clowning anybody. I'm just telling you, they flow. They know when I'm talking about Lake Terrace or when I'm doing this, that, or the other. Genuinely have relationships with these folks. So when you then tell me Thursdays we're going to come do this, it doesn't land on me the same way as what I'm suggesting. If I were to use, and I was not suggesting that we change our Thursdays, so I don't know where that came from. Just want to make sure you don't put my name behind that. I have given up, as the mayor and I will agree, way too many Thursday events, right? So I'm already comfortable with how Thursday is off the table. If I count it today, I had to break several hearts because I had to make sure I was here so that the staff knows that we're in this room hearing your budgets. I could have phoned this in. I could have been in those other spaces and phoned this in, but I recognize this, to Rick's point, we're the city council. It matters, right? That's all I'm asking is the January date aside, I'm having a hard time accepting that we have all 7 of us needing to be in that space when in the 6 years I've been on council, it hasn't been that way. And then it just kind of became that way, and it kind of just became etched in apparently stone. And then I learned a couple weeks ago that, no, we can revisit decisions that we made, which is all I'm trying to do now. And murky's the water because I think Councilmember Sonmore's concerns are different than mine, but it's the same outcome. Why are all 7 of us consistently shifting and calling that to a benefit of our residents? I challenge that to be true. You might personally be learning some stuff. I would encourage you to be the council liaison. That's how I learned the most, and that was a heck of a lot more time and no dinner. Except one time you did give us dinner. Thank you for that. But nonetheless, the point of that is there are other ways that we can learn. And I am suggesting, why don't we have it going back to one person going who represents us, or 2 people who go, or whatever the number that we decide, but to cancel an entire session. And coincidentally, it just happens to be, I care about what I'm losing on Wednesday, which is a Narcon training for a whole bunch of leaders in this region. Just going to have it set up. And you know what? They're all adults. They'll make it run, right? Because I need to be here for our vote. But the point of the story is, why isn't this happening on Thursday when it should happen? Because somebody tell me what's happening on that Thursday that feels so compelling that we need to be there. And I'm not suggesting we change it now because the clerk would have a heart attack. But the point remains, this was clearly more important. You had been forecasting that this might happen. And I don't even know what the agenda is for the AWC that we've canceled to now disrupt my Wednesday. So is this coming Thursday's event more important than our vote? Because we are going to lose one council member, according to the way you've said it so far. It's stuff like that, where I'm like, we could have at least said, hey, well, we aren't doing this one, but nobody said to do that, right? We all just said, oh, let's just see what happens on Wednesday. But again, what's happening on Thursday? That was more important than what we're doing right now.
You have 2 minutes. Okay, go ahead.
But lodging tax committee, I think you have to vote if I'm going to stay on that committee, and we don't have anybody from Studio 6 to represent. Is that still true? That would be the first time in years that that's happened. And do you want me to, I could go down there? I mean, it used
Andrew
to be.
went down there yesterday.
Oh, okay.
So I'm waiting to hear the results of that.
Okay, so.
I move
Go
to
ahead.
nominate Councilmember Sonmore to serve on the lodging committee.
Okay, are we voting on that right now?
I don't think we have to do that yet. Yeah, we'll bring it on an agenda. So it depends on whether Studio 6 will participate or not, and what we have to do if they won't, because the legislation requires a representative from the hotel. They just are not responding to us.
Councilmember Payne Donovan, but first I'm going to say, are we going to have any council comments at all? Otherwise, I will not, we have 1 minute, or I will go ahead and extend, but Councilmember.
Yeah, I'd just like to, before we adjourn, I'd like for us to put this conversation about attendance and scheduling and so on a future agenda, because I don't think we're done with that conversation.
Yeah, I'm fine with just going on the January one to vote our people into committees, and then say that we have Thursday council meetings, and unless you guys change your dinner. Councilmember Sonmore.
We could get the schedule if they even have a schedule, and each month, when they have it, I think they're down to 6 now, we could just look, it's 4, only 4? We used to meet every month. Wow, we could just see what's on the agenda. And I didn't realize it was only 4, so I don't want to keep you guys from going to it. It's only, maybe we do 2, I don't know.
We can schedule this for a future work session.
Okay, it's 10:30, so are there any council comments? Because if not, I'll adjourn. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to also talk about at a future meeting, or just flag for city manager and staff, do we have an AI usage policy, just based on our conversation earlier? And I'll just pose the question and leave it there. Thanks.
Councilmember Murray.
Thanks, Mayor.
Artificial intelligence use policy. Oh, just policy. Yeah.
Just
Okay.
quick question. Did we change our policy around comment at work sessions? I just noticed that was different today. So we did.
I had asked if there were any objections, because it seemed like a better way to, if people were going to come to attend and they wanted to comment, they didn't have to wait until 10:30 to do it. So we changed it.
I think it's in our council policies, so we might want to take a look at that.
Okay. Anyone else? Because we're 1 minute over. All right, we're adjourned.